I would like to call to order this work session of the Forest Grove City Council. Just a friendly reminder that during work sessions, no public comment will be taken and the council will take no formal action. The topic of tonight's council work session is Council Training Part 1, Public Meetings, Records, Ethics, and Council Rules. And I'm going to turn it over to our city attorney, Ms. Ashley Driscoll. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, council. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Because we have some new faces, I will briefly introduce myself and my role and then get going with our tonight's presentation. So my name is Ashley Driscoll. I'm a partner at Barry Elsner and Hammond, and our firm serves as the city attorney for the city of Forest Grove, along with, I think we're at 24 additional other cities, and we represent exclusively local governments across the state of Oregon, cities, counties, specialty districts. Each city that we provide city attorney services for has a primary attorney. For the city of Forest Grove, that is me. So in your role as a primary attorney, I do your general government work and then direct the legal workflow through my office. There are areas of law within the municipal umbrella that I do not practice, such as land use. You will never see me out here at a planning commission meeting or giving you advice on land use. One of the other attorneys from our office does that. So you'll see me and a variety of other faces. So welcome and congratulations. All right, I want to make sure that my clicker is working. I'll get started. So tonight's presentation is one of two parts. Typically, we in the past, our law firm has given this presentation in one 90-minute section, and we have covered public records, public meetings, and government ethics, along with authority, the authority of the council. However, in 2023, the Oregon legislature does what it does best, which is updates our laws, and one of them is a public meetings training requirement for all elected officials. And so that section of the training I've taken out and have a standalone training that we're going to do in January, because in order to meet your training requirement for that, we have to cover many different aspects of public meetings. And so I want to make sure that you can get that done in one fell swoop. So we're going to do that one in January. So for tonight, we're going to cover authority in the council authority and the charter and the council rules, the types of decisions and the different legal requirements for the different types of decisions that the council makes, public records, and then government ethics. My goal for tonight, we have about 90 minutes, which seems like a lot, but there's certainly also a lot of information to cover. Is not that you're going to be an expert in everything that you need to know about these areas of law. If you are, we're always hiring at BH. You can come join our team and go on the road and give this training. But what I do hope you get out of it is an understanding of when to ask questions and when you sort of enter the yellow flag areas. And so, a general understanding of what the laws are, when to ask questions, and who do you go to for assistance. So let's get started. As I mentioned before, this is a two-part training. The law changed in 2023. There were some changes to Oregon government public meetings laws, and that's going to require a longer training on that topic. So I want to start out by talking about the role of the city councilor. So neither the charter nor the municipal code grant power to an individual member of the council to act on behalf of the body. So as members of the council, you are one vote among 7. And as an individual member, you do not have any additional authority unless it's been specifically granted to you by the council, either through a resolution or ordinance or policy, or by authorization of the council for you to speak on its behalf. So when you're acting in your role as a councilor, you are expected to abide by the decisions of the body, whether or not you voted on behalf of that decision. So this comes up most in your liaison roles or when you have been asked to represent the city of Forest Grove, either in the community or in front of other governing bodies. In those times, you are speaking on behalf of the city, so your official position should align with the official position of the majority of the city council. It doesn't mean that you cannot give personal opinions or comments, but you should be cognizant that as a representative of the body, you speak on its behalf. And when you're making any sort of personal comments or opinions, that you're very clear that you are not speaking on behalf of the body, that those opinions are your own and not the City of Forest Groves. I should also mention, as I go through the topics, I'll stop at the end of each big topic and make sure that there's no questions before I move on. I think most folks are aware that the Constitution or governing document of any city is the city charter. The city charter is voted on by the citizens of the City of Forest Grove. We just went through a very robust charter amendment process, and it was approved by voters. So I'm sure everybody on the council knows that at the council level, you cannot amend the charter. Any amendments to the charter have to be approved by voters. All other city documents have to be consistent with your city charter. So we're going to talk in a second about the council rules and ordinances and contracts. All of those can provide additional detail or color on the Constitution, that is the charter, but they cannot conflict with it. So all of your other city documents either have to be read consistent with the city charter, or they have to be read consistent with the city charter or add additional detail to what the city charter provides. One of the main things that the city charter does is establishes your form of government. So you guys are a councilor manager form of government, which means that the authority in the city is mostly held by the city council. Over the city administrator is the person who's been delegated the authority to be the administrative head of the city. Your charter also defines what the quorum is, establishes the votes required for certain activities and the different roles of members of the council, such as the mayor and the council president. The council rules, your charter requires that you develop a set of council rules. The council rules are amended and adopted by the city council via resolution. So the city council can change your council rules without having to be approved by voters. As I mentioned before, what the city council rules really does is fill in the gaps left by the charter. For instance, how are you going to run your meetings, how topics get on the agenda, details of what it means to represent the city, when do you need to make it clear that you're giving your personal opinion, how you're going to run your public hearings, what sort of decorum standards that you're going to have. All of those issues are dealt with within your council rules. Every year or every couple of years, we take a look at your council rules to make sure that they reflect how the council is functioning, and to stop and ask the question, are there areas that the council would like to address? I would say the main purpose of your council rules is to make sure your council is functioning properly and your meetings are running smoothly. And it's essentially an agreement among councilors about how those things are going to be done and how issues are going to be addressed. So one of the things that I know that we looked to accomplish for tonight was to see if there were any members of council that have already reviewed the council rules, and if there are any council rules that have already come to mind that the council would like to consider amending.
Ashley, before we do that, do you think, are there any questions about anything that Ashley's covered first, and then we can go through council
Sure.
rules?
Any questions about authority so far?
No questions? Okay, so are there any rules, members of the councils? But we're not going to address the rules right now. What we're going to do is make a list of rules, and then we can schedule a work session at a later date to kind of unpack those and examine how we want to revise them. So is there anything that we think is missing or we would like to address? Anyone? I have a couple. So I would like to, when it talks about attendance, we have, I think, over the telephone, but we really haven't added anything for Zoom. And I would just want to make sure, I want to add like the expectation, like camera on, or you know what I mean? Some of those things, we don't have to discuss it right now, but if we're going to allow Zoom meetings, I think we need to have some sort of level of expectation for that. And then the other thing I would like to address is public comments. I talked to someone this weekend, and one of the things that's kind of bothered me is, do we have to include address and like private information? And do people know that when they write an email to us, that it will be public in the packet, like when they fill out that form? Anyways, we don't have to get into all this, but the private information of community members for public comment and how we distribute that, i.e. the packet. Those are my two. Okay, I don't see anyone else.
There, with the public comment, do they have to be within the city to have a public comment? Because there was people that came in before, so I mean,
Yeah,
if there are
no.
people from other cities, I mean, it doesn't make
In the
sense.
rules right now, it says and location. I went back and looked at the rules. It says and like the person's name and location. So we can just like agree if that's zip code, but not specifically their address. But anyways, we don't have to get into that quite right now. Councilor Gustafson.
So we'll discuss that more. We'll unpack it later.
Yeah. I think, right, is that's
Yes.
my understanding, because we don't really have time tonight. We just wanted to kind of put together a list to see what we wanted to look at. Okay, if something else comes up, like if you go back and look at the council rules, I think one strategy would be to, in your one-on-one meetings with Jesse, say, hey, I wasn't, I thought about it and I would like to add this to our discussion on council rules. Okay, just in case people want more time. Yeah, Councilor Gustafson and then Councilor Schimmel.
So when you were talking about addresses, I'm trying to scope it. Are you also talking back to the email? I know there's been a few people that have and they want to stop communicating with the council because somebody and gotten all these email addresses and started spamming people about things that were important to them because they have addresses. And people that I speak to feel that they're at risk, their information.
Yeah, it would definitely be like, that would be included in the person's. Councilor Schimmel?
Yeah, I want to deep dive into the role of the city manager relative to the council.
Okay, for authority. Okay. Or for the council rules.
Authority, or of the charter specifically.
I'm not following.
So I think what you're saying is that you would like to look at the role of the city manager. A lot of that is circumscribed by the charter, which is approved by voters. And I believe in the council rules, it mimics the language, but that's certainly something that we can look at.
Yeah, just clarification or check understanding.
Okay, cool. Anything else? Okay, we can continue on.
So we're going to get into our next topic, and I am going to breeze through this one pretty quickly, and it's the different types of decisions that the city council makes and why the difference between them is important. So there's three general types of decisions that the city council makes. There's the judicial is exactly as it sounds. It's when the council is acting as a judge. Essentially, you're resolving a dispute by applying a set of facts to an already established law. And as we're going to discuss in a moment, when you're doing that, there are heightened process standards to make sure that that hearing is fair. So quasi-judicial hearings, a big takeaway, there's a lot more procedural requirements for those types of hearings than there are for the other types of decisions that you're going to make. The other two types are legislative. The legislative is as it sounds. It's when you're making laws of general applicability. And again, these definitions are a little bit different under land use versus elections, but essentially legislative is when you're making a law of general applicability. And then administrative is when you're implementing policies that have already been established, or acting as the employer when you're doing the review of your city manager or taking other steps that are internal to the city. Those are administrative decisions. So quasi-judicial, I'm going to touch on this really quickly. As I talked about, it applies pre-existing criteria to an individual person or piece of land. The context that you're going to see this over and over again, but not exclusively, is land use. And maybe also one of the reasons I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly. When you're trying to decide, sometimes there's a question about whether or not the decision that you're making is quasi-judicial or legislative. And again, the importance is if it's quasi-judicial, you have a higher due process standard than with legislative. What we're looking for is any sort of decisions that are bound to result in a decision. So in the legislative context, you don't have to change your code. In a quasi-judicial, you have to come to a decision. You have to resolve this dispute. In quasi-judicial, you're applying pre-existing criteria to concrete facts. So you're not establishing what criteria, you're applying facts to that criteria. And then it's directed at a closely circumscribed factual situation or a relatively small number of persons. So it's resolving a dispute between a small number of individuals rather than making a policy or law that will be applicable to the entire city. So as I mentioned, if it's quasi-judicial, you're going to have general standards of due process. What due process means is an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to present and rebut evidence, and an opportunity to have that in front of an impartial decision maker, and of course, having written records of findings adequate to permit judicial review. So additional process requirements. Legislative decisions, we touched on this, usually involve the adoption of more generally applicable policies or standards that apply to a variety of factual situations and to a broad number of people. They're an expression of local government policy, and you're never required to reach a decision on a legislative proposal. You may table something and come back to it at a later time. Sometimes it feels like you have to come to a decision. For instance, with the recent camping legislation, because we had a deadline established by state law, it didn't feel like we had to make a decision by a certain time, but really that was to be in compliance with state law. So when you have a quasi-judicial decision, you're going to be thinking more about ex parte contacts and conflicts of interest, although those always apply, and then bias. Like you want to make sure that if you're resolving a dispute between two people, that you have as clean a hearing as you could possibly have. You're going to need to disclose ex parte conflicts or contacts, conflicts of interest, and bias. So conflicts of interest can also be considered in legislative decisions, but ex parte and bias is really unique to quasi-judicial. So ex parte contacts, I think most people are generally familiar with what these are, but essentially what this slide says is that, when you're in a quasi-judicial hearing, it's gathering any sort of information about the issue that's outside of the hearing process. So I drove by the piece of land that is at issue here. I read a newspaper article about this issue. You're gathering information outside of the hearing process, and it creates a little bit of an unfair environment for the people that are within the dispute, because you are making your decision or potentially making your decision based on evidence that they haven't had the opportunity to know that you'd consider or potentially rebut, which is why it's important to disclose those contacts within the quasi-judicial process. Quasi-judicial contacts doesn't render a decision unlawful. Again, you're going to have them. You live in a relatively small town. You're going to be making a lot of land use decisions. You're going to, overhear a conversation at a soccer game or within the grocery store that talks about the issue that you're going to have to decide upon. So what do you do about that? You disclose it. The drumbeat that you're going to hear tonight is transparent. So if you've had an ex parte contact, it's within a quasi-judicial hearing. What your obligation is to report what that contact was and the substance of it. So you need to place it on the record and publicly announce that you had it, and then you've fulfilled your requirement. And that gives the public the opportunity to rebut the substance of that ex parte contact, and the hearing, again, is full and fair. One thing to note is that communications with staff are not considered ex parte contacts. So if you've had a conversation with Jesse or the planning director or somebody from my office, that's not considered an ex parte contact. However, be cognizant of not using a staff person as a way to communicate with other people or to gather information. So I would be information about how others are going to vote. So I would be cognizant that it's not ex parte, but to not use them as a conduit for obtaining additional information. So bias is a really interesting one because we all have biases, and especially those who have been newly elected or just gone through a campaign. You've announced your positions on a lot of different items that are affecting the city, and that's part of why you've been elected into office. So biases or strong opinions about matters that affect your city are, not disqualifying for the role. In fact, large reason why you're sitting up here is that you have strong opinions about how your city should function. So when we're talking about bias, we're talking about actual bias. So a biased decision maker impairs a party's ability to do a full and fair hearing. Bias can be in favor of or against a party in the party in any sort of application, but generalized expressions of opinions are not bias. So actual bias is a prejudice about a decision that's so great that you're unable to be objective. You're unable to set aside your personal feelings about a matter in front of you in order to apply the facts to a pre-established law. If you have a strong opinion about something, but you're still able to be an objective decision maker, then you're still able to participate in the process. So I was thinking about this before I came here, and these issues get raised, especially in really contentious land use issues. And typically, somebody will make a comment like, I'll never vote to approve that development. That is a statement that sort of sends the message, no matter what the facts are, no matter how they apply to the objective criteria, I'm never going to vote for that development to come into that area. That's actual bias. That's saying that you're unable to be objective, and that should be disqualifying for your role in making that decision. However, again, just came off a campaign season, you expressed opinions. Perhaps I'm not in favor of that development, or I'm not in favor of high density housing, those sort of comments, or even I'm not in favor of that project. Those are all fine if they're followed by, but I can be a fair and objective decision maker on this matter. So if I was going to have one takeaway for you all in bias, it's that it's actually a very high bar. As elected officials, the expectation is that you have strong opinions. Actual bias means prejudice or prejudgment of the parties or the case to such a degree that the decision maker is incapable of being persuaded by the facts to vote another way. So it's actually a pretty high bar. So those are the issues that you need to know or be aware of in the types of decisions that you're going to make. For quasi-judicial, you need to make sure that when you're making a decision that you have announced and disclosed all your ex parte contacts, that you're free of conflicts of interest, or you've taken the appropriate actions we're going to talk about soon here, and that you are not biased in favor of any one of the applicants. Bias and ex parte conflicts are unique to quasi-judicial. Legislative and administrative decisions can have some issues with conflict of interest as well. So I'm going to pause there. Any questions? And again, I know I breezed through the types of decisions that you guys are going to make, but any questions about this?
Any questions for Ashley? Councilor Schimmel.
Thank you, Mark. I mean, you may have clarified it with the high bar, but I know that there's going to be a number of issues that, through my day job, I'll be asked to express opinion and such, and some of that may or may not reach the dais as far as something that the council will want consensus. Is there any guidance on that circumstance?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is sort of to repeat what we talked about. I think you'll need to just ask yourself, is this something that I can be objective on? Despite, my personal, professional influences and opinions, am I able to set that aside in order to make an objective decision? Or, have my public statements been such that, it would be difficult for the public to believe that I'd be able to set those aside? And then just, you have to consider the impact on the potential decision. Is this in a land use context, again, not a land use practitioner, but could this be something that impacts the validity of the decision? And so I think those are issues to keep in mind when making those decisions.
So I guess
No, you're fine.
just in those circumstances, I think of that. I guess what I want to make sure I'm clear on is that my statements through my employment or other civic responsibility, it needs to be answered for when I'm deliberating it here as a counselor.
So I think it's possible that if I'm not quite sure like what exactly professional responsibilities you have, but if you are in a profession that is within the city and through that job, you make statements about yourself that would lead others to believe that you wouldn't be an objective decision maker for the city, then I do think that you need to analyze whether or not you're able to actually make a decision based on the law, based on the facts and criteria in front of you. And if the answer is that I feel so strongly about this issue that I'm unable to set it aside, then I think it would rise to the level of actual bias.
Okay. And just for transparency, I work for Central Cultural. I'm already going to be in a recusal situation tonight in a regular meeting. But there are, I mean, Centro owns property. They operate in Forest Grove. So there's going to be a number of instances where, there's going to be either information presented, potentially, decisions being made. And I just want to know how I need to conduct myself in that space, knowing that the issue may come before this body.
Yeah, and I think there could be a variety of issues with bias and ex parte contacts. We are talking specifically in the quasi judicial realm, and so I do think that will narrow the number of instances that come before the council. So, you said they own property. It could be, and again, it's most usually in the land use context. So if there's a dispute or a hearing on a piece of land and Centra owns it, that could maybe be an area where we need to be concerned about bias. But for other types of decisions, bias isn't one of the criteria that we're considering.
Ashley, for quasi judicial hearings, in the script, so based on my memory, and staff can correct me and you can correct me, but there's like, do any counselors have anything they would like to disclose, like conflicts of interest, ex parte? And then there's a portion that says, would anyone like to challenge that counselor's ability to be impartial or to be, and is that a challenge from, how does that challenge work? Is
Yeah,
that a
it's a
challenge
great
from
question.
the community member, the applicant, another counselor? I've always kind of like, don't know, and I feel like I need to know that as the presider of the meeting.
Yeah, so the challenge, it is somebody from the member of the community to raise an issue, but ultimately it's going to be the elected official who decides whether or not they can.
So the person would challenge, like community member challenge, and then that counselor who recused themselves or did not recuse, they at the end of the day have the final.
They have the final decision.
Okay.
And they can receive advice, from legal counsel. How does my participation in this particular hearing impact, the outcome? What potential challenges could be made down the line? They could receive input, but ultimately the decision will be theirs.
Great, thank you, Counselor Gustafson.
Just a little clarity.
Sorry, if you could put your mic down.
Really, I was eating celery, so I didn't want to be loud. The biases are our own to know. Like, we have to know ourselves in order to know that. And then in addition, there's going to be it's such a small town that a lot of us are involved in multiple things. So it seems like there's always times that come up that we're discussing something that we have a connection to. So it's, bias conversations do happen sometimes, just for an FYI. That's it.
Yeah, and again, this comes up most particularly in land use, and our land use attorneys will be giving you additional information about, the potential outcomes, the potential consequences in the land use context. Jesse, did you want anything you wanted to add? Okay.
Thank you. I don't see any further questions.
Okay. All right. Our next big topic is public records. So public records laws has two main components for everybody on the council to be aware of. The first is inspection, that public has the right to inspect public records with some limits, and that public records, that there's a preservation requirement for public records. Public records include any writing that contains information related to the conduct of the city's business. And the definition of writing, I'm not going to read it to you, but it is very broad. And so the big takeaway for that I would like you to have on public records is that the medium doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you're sending an email on your city email address. your personal email address, whether it's a text message, whether it's sent via carrier pigeon. If it is discussing the city's business, it's a public record that needs to be retained per the state's public records requirements. So we're going to get to some of what, the areas that cause the greatest concern. But as I continue doing this longer and longer, it's text messaging that comes up all the time. We do more and more of our business via text. And if it's scheduling a meeting, I wouldn't necessarily consider, that the public's business. But if you're doing substantive city work and you're having substantive conversations about the city via text message, those are public records that need to be retained. If you're sending an email on your personal email address, same thing. Social media, Nextdoor, Facebook, whatever the one is that I don't know about quite yet, all of those, if you're talking about the city's business, are going to be considered public records. The public may be charged a reasonable fee for inspections, and there are exemptions that exist that permit the city to keep certain documents confidential. How this impacts the city council is that every now and again we'll get a public records request that, all communications from Councilor X within this time period, and, somebody from the city, probably Mariah, will be contacting you and asking you to gather all of your messages or communications. Usually it's drafted really broadly with a certain topic within a certain time period. It's great if you can just say, I do all my work on my city email. All of my communications are contained within my city email address. That makes responding to that public records request very easy for you and very easy for the city. If, all your communications about a certain topic or this, any of the city business are dispersed among, all these different medians, it's going to be you going through all of that to be able to gather up all that information to be able to send to the city. And it is a little bit more so the city must follow records retention policy approved by the Secretary of State. Mariah is on top of, there's different retention requirements based on the substance of the record. So, it's not just a blanket. We have to keep all city records for 5 to 10 years. You have to look at the type of record and that there is a specific retention requirement for that. We have to keep one official copy of each record for the entire retention period. And then destruction of public records in a manner inconsistent with the approved retention policy is a criminal offense. So again, thank you for your public service. There are some things that we're going to go over tonight that seem a little scary, but destruction of public record is a criminal offense, and that would be personal to you. So it is in your interest to make sure that you have a good system in order to capture all of your public work. I don't know if I need to go over too much. This duty extends to an elected and appointed officials, not just employees. When you're even deleting emails, if they're stored on your system, even in your deleted folder, if they still exist within the retention period, they are responsive to public records requests. So I already mentioned this before. Be cognizant of your text messages, be cognizant of your social media activity. Personal notes is a fun one. I'm not sure if you guys followed the West Lynn lawsuit that happened a couple of years ago. The lawsuit essentially was about whether or not your handwritten notes that you take maybe on agendas or in your council packets are in fact public records. But if they're writing that has to do with the public business, they sure are. So, whether you have to have a system for retaining your personal notes when you're doing the city's business, the answer is yes. And so again, I would develop a system. If you're like me and are a person that really does like taking notes, the handwritten notes is part of the thought process, I would develop a system, for instance, having a notebook. Whenever you're attending a council meeting, you have one notebook that you take your notes in, or you bring a notebook on all your city meetings when you're acting as liaison. I would develop a system to be able to capture all of those. And again, Mariah's going to love me by the time we're done with this presentation, but you can also work with Mariah in order to develop a system that works for you. So the big takeaway for public records is to make sure that at least one copy of any record you use related to your official capacity is being kept in accordance with the city's public records retention policy. Before I move on, any questions about public records?
Councilor Valenzuela.
Thank you. I just want to ask this. Recently, I received many letters to the box in the city hall.
Mhm.
So those letters are about issues of the city.
Mhm.
Okay. So what do I do with those letters?
So those letters you should find a way to be able to keep and store them. So
Okay.
if they're paper, what I would do is scan them, take a picture of them, email them either to Mariah or email them
Okay.
to your own email account, and therefore you're able to retain them.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the city has its own process or different process for that.
For letters that are addressed individually to a city councilor, those have been their, correct me if I'm wrong, Mariah, but those have been their responsibility. If it's addressed to the entire council, then we include that in the city council packet.
So does that answer your question?
Yes,
So they do need
thank
to be
you.
retained. Yep.
Can I follow? I think it would be helpful to council, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but it's difficult for us to know if it got delivered to. I mean, I assume if I get something, it's delivered to all of us. But like maybe we've gotten some letters, like just say, hey, we scan this in for public records. Like, right, this is. I mean, so we know we don't have to do that. I'm just trying to figure out what's the system where council will know if it's our responsibility or not. Go ahead, Maria.
So when it's sent to the whole council, like we have had some paper letters that were sent to individual councilors, but sent to the council as a whole. Those have been, we'll usually attach it to an email, send it to you guys, letting you know, and then it will be in the public comment. So any letters that you got that we added to public comment already, and you should have gotten an email, then you can dispose of those because we have that copy saved.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So if a city councilor gets an individual letter, but none of the other councilors get it, and the city councilor doesn't respond, is there a requirement to retain that letter?
Yes, because it's still a public record. It's communication received by the public.
The letter itself is a public record?
The letter itself is public record.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So our last big topic that we're going to go over is sort of the largest, which is government ethics for public officials. So the policy is that the service as a public official is a public trust, and that as one safeguard for the trust, the people require all public officials to comply with the law. So the Oregon government ethics laws have a variety of components. We're not going to go over all of these today, but abuse of office, reporting requirements, conflicts of interest, nepotism, gifts, use of confidential information, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, which you're going to hear me refer to as OGEC, and then penalties. I'm going to spend time this evening on abuse of office, conflicts of interest. I'm going to touch on gifts, and then the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, their role, and what the potential penalties are. I think it's important to remember, whenever I do this presentation on government ethics and government and public meetings, that the overall policy is transparency, and that sometimes the actual details are, the word that comes to mind, a little bit fussy, a little bit difficult to comply with. But the aim is admirable, which is to be as transparent as possible with the trust that the public has put into government officials. So the first one I'm going to talk about is abuse of office, and it's public officials may not use or attempt to use their positions to obtain a financial gain or avoid a financial detriment that would not otherwise be available but for the holding of public office. A clearer way to say that is that you should not gain financially or avoid any sort of financial detriment solely because of your role with the city. So as a government official, your entire compensation should be through an approved compensation package, which I believe that the city of Forest Grove has. There should be no other financial benefit that's not clear to the public that is outside of that. And this applies both to the public officials and to relatives or members of the household of the public official. So we're going to go over what the definition of relative means, but essentially, any close relative will be considered a relative. Anybody who you are financially dependent on or is financially dependent on you, or anybody who lives in your household will be considered one of your relatives. One of your relatives should also not benefit financially through your role with the city. And then finally, it also applies to businesses for which the public official or their relative is associated with. So you're going to have to think about not just yourselves, not just your spouse and your children, but also, where they work and where they receive their income. And if they are, specially benefited because of your role with the city, then that could potentially be an abuse of office issue. These actually come up a decent amount, and the fact patterns that come to my office are sometimes amusing. The one that comes up a lot is, a festival that happens to be within a city. The festival is really proud of the city, and they want the city councilors to attend, or they want members of city staff to be there to understand what the festival is. So, good intentions, they give everybody free passes to the festival. And those free passes sometimes are $100 value, sometimes they're $500 value. And you as city councilors, if you accept, that $500 free ticket to the festival within the city, that would be an abuse of office claim or abuse of office violation for you, because that's a financial benefit that you're receiving that you would not receive, but for your position with the city. So those are the sort of things to be on the lookout for that may seem really reasonable, that it's benefiting this guy. He wants me to come see his festival and be part of it. But how it could look to a member of the outside is that you've received this benefit. 2 years later, they come before you for a permit, and it looks like there has, there's something untoward going on when really there is not. So those are the sort of things that end up coming up a lot, that you don't necessarily think that this could actually be an issue. You're not thinking conflicts of interest because you're not making any decision about that person immediately, but it still could potentially be a violation. So there are a variety of actions that you can take that could be a violation of abuse of office. They could be voting within a public meeting, again, making a vote that benefits you, that you would not benefit but for your position with the city. And we'll talk about some exceptions to that in a moment. Putting your signature on a government agency's document, that could be abuse of office, depending on what that document is. Making a recommendation, making a purchase with government agencies' funds, using government agencies' resources not available to the public. And again, as we talked about, accepting gifts could also, accepting gifts over a certain value could also be abuse of office. There is substantial overlap with conflicts of interest. So conflicts of interest also usually are also abuse of office issues, but abuse of office, as I said, with the festival tickets, they can also be standalone violations as well. And some of them can be small. For instance, City Public Works is, no longer using a certain tool or a certain material. They have extra, so they send an email out to city staff and city council, come pick up these wood plates that we're not using anymore at the Public Works Hall. You go and pick them up, and that's an abuse of office because that is something free to you and available only because of your role with the city. So those are things, again, like they don't seem like big deals, but if you're getting something that is not available to the general public, that is not within one of the exceptions that we're going to talk about, that could potentially be an abuse of office. So it also applies not just to you, but to your relatives. And again, I'm not going to read this entire list to you tonight. But be cognizant that it is, a little bit of a broad definition. So it's your spouse, your parent, your step parent, a child of yours or your spouse, anybody that you have legal support from, any individual who you believe benefits, that gets benefits from your employment, anybody within your household. And it's also any business for which you're associated with. So a business is a self-employed individual or any legal entity that has been formed for the purpose of producing economic income. Generally, it's your employer. Whoever you're employed with is going to be a business that you're associated with. So that's a private business if you're a director, officer, owner of employee or agent of that business. If you own or have owned $100 or $1,000 worth of stock in that private business, equity, stock options, or debt interest, in the preceding calendar year, that's going to be a business for which you're associated with. If we're talking about a publicly held company, if you are an officer or director, or if you own or have owned more than $100,000 worth of stock in the preceding calendar year. A business that is a source of income that produced 10% or more of your total annual household income, and you're required to file an annual statement of economic interest. So generally speaking, I think everybody knows what businesses for which they're associated with. The rub here is it's all the businesses which you're associated with and your relatives. So let's go back here. If your step sibling in town, doesn't matter if you're estranged from them, you haven't seen them in 20 years, but they are one of the contractors that are looking to do your janitorial contract, and that's coming before city council. That's going to be a business for which your relative is associated with, and that's going to be abuse of office, and we're going to talk about this with conflicts of interest as well. What is excluded is some types of nonprofits and some rules within those nonprofits. So generally speaking, if you were a volunteer at a nonprofit and that your role is not income producing, that you're a board member, you're a volunteer within that board, that is not going to be a business for which you're associated with, because you're getting no financial impact from your association with that business. And therefore, when anything related to that business comes before the city council, that's not going to be an abuse of office or a conflict of interest for you as an elected official. I put some examples up here. An elected county commissioner is a member of a credit union that operates without profit, is tax exempt under the revenue code. Because the public official is associated with the credit union only as a member, the credit union is not considered a business. But the son of an elected city councilor is the teller employed by that credit union. Because the public official's relative is a paid employee of the credit union, the city councilor's association with that credit union does not meet the exclusion, and the credit union would be a business. So for nonprofits, it's you have to look into a little bit more deeply. But generally speaking, if you're not paid member of the board, you're fine. If you're any sort of employee or your relative is an employee, it is going to be a business for which you're associated. So I'm going to do conflicts of interest and then take any questions that the council may have. So conflicts of interest is when a decision or recommendation you are making would or could result in a private pecuniary benefit or detriment to you, your relatives, a business for which you're associated with, either you or your relatives. So again, anytime you're making a decision that would impact you, a business, or relative financially, that's going to be a conflict of interest. Within the city of Forest Grove, these are going to happen. Like I can guarantee during your time on the member of the council, there's going to be at least one conflict of interest issue. So they're not to be scared. You shouldn't be scared of them, and they're not to be avoided. It's just being able to recognize them and then know how you should handle them. So the difference between an actual conflict of interest and a potential conflict of interest is how certain is the financial gain. If you being involved in the decision or decision of the body will impact you, a relative or business financially, then it is an actual conflict of interest. If there's no question, it's awarding a contract to, your son's business. It's yes or no. He gets the contract and the business benefits financially. That's an actual conflict of interest. If it is more tenuous, that it's a potential to benefit you or a relative or a business financially, then it is a potential conflict of interest. So for an actual conflict of interest, again, it's all about transparency. The things that you need to do is first publicly announce the conflict. Whenever the issue comes up, the mayor will give you an opportunity and you can say, I have an actual conflict of interest. You have to describe in some level of detail, not too much, what that conflict is. And then you refrain from participating in any official action, including discussion of the matter. So once you've identified an actual conflict of interest, you really should exclude yourself from the conversation. I know a lot of elected officials will leave the dais for that portion of the conversation because they're sending the message that they're not trying to influence it, they're not making eye contact, they're a member of the public. And then if they want, they can participate. as a member of the public and have access to the council as a member of the public, but they're not involved in either deliberations or the decisions if there's an actual conflict of interest. If there's a potential conflict of interest, you need to announce it every time it comes up. So I think I might have a potential conflict of interest. My husband, has a company in the area that could potentially apply, for this contract. I'm going to respond to this RFP. We're not certain if he's going to, we're not certain if he'd get the work, but, I want to be as transparent as possible that I have a potential conflict of interest. You then follow up by saying, despite my conflict, I can be as objective as possible, or I can be objective in this decision. And once you have done that, you can participate in any official action, any discussion, including voting on awarding that contract. So with actual conflicts of interest, you remove yourself completely. You're not involved in any of the conversation or the decision. For potential conflicts of interest, you announce it every time it comes up. You describe the nature of the conflict, and you can participate as any other member of the council. I put some examples here, which I went over a little bit in my discussion before, but these are the ones I also pulled from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission website when I was putting together this presentation. They are the ones that I see come up the most often. So it's a school district decided to construct a new elementary school, and the school board is in the process of developing criteria for the construction bid process. A recently elected school board member's son owns a construction company in town. The school board member would be met with a potential conflict when participating in official actions in developing the bid criteria, because the official action she takes could financially impact her son's construction company, a business with which her relative is associated. So she has a son who might apply for this, might bid on this construction project. She's going to announce it in developing the criteria. Again, it's transparency. So people, she brought it forward, she's on record of having done that. If she looks like she's steering, the business towards her son, the public can be aware of that. A school district is soliciting bids for construction of the new elementary school. We're now in the next stage of the process. The bid deadline was last week, and the district superintendent has notified the school board that there are 4 qualified bids, and the school board will be awarding it at one of their upcoming meetings. One of the qualified bids was submitted by the construction companies owned by the school member's son. The school board member will be met with an actual conflict of interest when awarding this bid, because the effect of her decision would have a financial impact on her son's construction company. So this is an example of an actual conflict of interest. So it was fine that she participated in the earlier stage, which was developing the criteria, but it's now moved to the actual conflict, and in actually awarding the contract, the school board member would need to recuse herself completely from that decision-making process. And then I added the no conflict because this actually comes up a lot. I'm not going to read this one because I don't think it's as important, but if you're making a decision that impacts somebody close to you, but you don't have any financial dependence on. So this one is about a best friend. It comes up a lot with your neighbors or people that you're closely associated. Our sons played soccer together, what have you. Without a financial connection between the person, then you don't have a conflict of interest in my world. There could be a perception of bias or perception, a lowercase c conflict of interest, but it is not an Oregon government ethics issue if there's not a financial tie between you, a relative, and a business. So I bring this up because it's an awkward position for city councilors to be in, but it is not an ethical violation. So I mentioned there's some exceptions. One of the big ones we already talked about, the exception for nonprofits, being associated with a nonprofit, doesn't necessarily mean that is a business for which you are associated with for abuse of office and conflicts of interest. Class exception is one that comes up a lot. And this is an exception if that you are part of a large class of individuals who are going to be impacted in the same way by the decision that you're going to make. So for instance, you guys are going to be asked to make decisions on water rates, on other fees that affect the city, and there's going to affect you financially. but you're part of a very large class. You're part of every resident of the city. So the larger the class, the more it looks like that you're not going to have an abuse of office or an actual conflict of interest because it's not specific to you. However, because it's the law, there's no bright line that I can say that as long as there's 25 people in the class, you're fine. It all comes down to, analyzing the factors, the totality of the circumstances in that particular situation. So if you would like to rely on the class exception, I would do so carefully, and I would do so after getting advice from counsel. Okay. There's another exception, which are gifts. So you are allowed to receive, gifts from your loved ones, gifts from your neighbors and friends, but there is a gift limit on what you can receive for those who have a legislative or administrative interest in your role as a public official. So for anybody that has a legislative or administrative interest in your role as a public official, the annual gift limit, which hasn't changed in the 12 to 15 years that I've been doing this, is $50. And that is $50 from that one source over the entire course of a year. So, like if I have a meeting with Jesse, I can go pick us up Starbucks. I can do it the once, and that's fine. He can accept a $5 Starbucks. I don't know what his order is. He can accept that from me, and that's fine. But if I did that, every single week over the course of the year, we would exceed our gift limit. So I would be cognizant of that if you receive something from a member of the public. And again, it's somebody that reasonably could have a legislative or administrative interest, in your role as a city councilor. You believe that gift exceeds $50, then the onus is on you to essentially return the gift. Otherwise, it could potentially be a violation of your Oregon government ethics requirement. And again, because the $50 limit hasn't changed in quite a long time, I think it was supposed to be cover maybe one dinner. I think at this point it barely covers a lunch. So I would just be cognizant of that forward. Gift is anything of economic value, but does include things like gifts from relatives and members of your household, which is nice. Your spouse can still give you a holiday gift without running afoul of any of these laws. Gift in form of tokens, plaques, trophies, or mementos. Gifts received as part of your private business, employment, or volunteerism. There's several other exemptions from definitions of gifts. Generally speaking, if it's something that is part of your official compensation package, it's food that you receive when you are representing the city of Forest Grove conference, those sort of things are excluded from the gift limit. That really expensive fruit basket that somebody just sent you, a local business in town, to congratulate you for your winning the election, I would scrutinize that a little bit more carefully. So the big takeaways, and then I'll answer any question that you might have about Oregon government ethics, is that be on the lookout for any actions that may be related to the city, whether in a personal or official capacity, that may affect the financial interests of you, your relatives, or business with either you or your relatives are associated or members of your household. So again, there are a lot of nuances. It seems black and white, but when you get into the scenarios, some of them get a little bit clouded. What I would like you to take away is a good understanding of when you need to ask questions. And I guess there is one other topic I want to handle before I turn it over for questions, which is, what happens? What happens if there is, an alleged violation or even a violation? So these issues are personal to members of the city council. So when you have questions, generally speaking, if you raise them to me, what I'm going to say is that I represent the city, and, questions about government ethics are personal to you and the liability is personal. So as the city's attorney, I cannot represent you or give you legal advice on those issues. What I can do is refer you to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission that answer questions very quickly, and they can provide you guidance on, how you should deal with your specific situation. All of this does sound kind of daunting. Here you guys are volunteers that, give a lot of your time to the city, and there's all of these, issues to be aware of. So violations are personal to you. There is personal liability. What happens when somebody makes a complaint is that the complaint goes to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. They do an investigation, and at the end of the investigation, they can make a decision on how it's handled. And, a lot of times these issues are dismissed. Going through the process is still not fun, but a lot of times, they're dismissed. Either the not enough evidence for a violation or the alleged action doesn't rise to the level of a violation. Or they decide that there was a violation and there can be penalties. The maximum civil penalty is $5,000. I think it goes up to $10,000 if it appears that it is willful. But what happens the most is a letter of education. I think most people who assume public office do it for absolutely the right reasons, and these issues comes up and folks don't realize that there are violations. So the most likely outcome if you receive a complaint is to get a letter of education from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, which I agree is not a fun process to have to go through, but it's not something, that will be hugely detrimental in your life going forward. If you do gain financially, it can be, there can be double the damages that you received through receiving that benefit. So with that, any questions for me from the council?
Any questions for Ashley? I don't see any. Oh, Jesse has the question.
I'll break the ice. So a statement of economic interest that has to be filled out by city councilors every year. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
So I've actually never had to fill one out and not have to have been involved in the process. So I actually don't know a lot about the statement of economic interest other than that you do have to fill one out and that you have to provide the information about where you receive your income. Mariah may actually know more about that topic than I do.
Mariah, do you want to?
Sorry. I do. So the incoming counselors, I'll add your name, update it in their database, and it's due. I think they usually start the process in January, and it's due around April, I believe. But you'll get emails from them. They do have lots of materials on the site about it. There's like trainings I think you can take if you really need help with it. But yeah, that'll be you'll get emails from me and from them shortly.
Any other questions? I had a question. So because we were doing this and looking at and I look at the council rules a lot. So there's a section in the council rules about ethics complaint. And, and I think I should just add that to our list for council rules because I think it reads something like, I don't know, hang on a minute. Let me grab it. Oh, I might have gone too far. But it basically, I'm going to summarize it because I'm not going to read it, but it's like the council, if there's an ethics complaint, the council can decide if it's in a public meeting to investigate it or an executive session. But what I'm listening to you is that, I don't think any of us are in the capacity to really investigate that. And it's people's ethics are personal to them. So I'm just wondering, do we need to update that? I guess I would add that to our list because what I'm wondering is like, that's an awkward situation as like the presiding officer is like, how would that process even look based on our council rules? Like someone brings it up in council communications and then we have a work session and then that person decides if it's a public hearing or executive session. You know what I'm saying? It's a really kind of murky council rule.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to figure out how we would even navigate that.
So I can tell you, I looked at your council rule about that, and I can speak a little bit to how that is navigated. So your council rules do have a section about violations. So each counselor, has agreed by being a member of this body to abide by the council rules. And there's many opportunities within the council rules to violate individual rules, a decorum violation, an agenda, placing something or trying to place something on the agenda not according to the council rules. And the council has to decide how you enforce your own rules. So the rules are enforced by members of the council raising issues that, frankly, other members have violated the rules. And then you have a process established in your council rules of how you address those complaints. So complaints against counselors can be addressed in executive session with notice being given to the member of council who is the subject of that executive session. In that executive session, the council can decide how they want to proceed with that complaint, whether they investigate it themselves, where they have another body investigate it, whether it's worth investigating or not. And then they can, take whatever action that they want to take. Let's say they want, additional information about this potential violation. That can come back in executive session for the city council to review that information and then decide what action that you would like to take in response to that complaint or that violation. The actual decision has to be an open session, but the rest of that conversation can be in executive session. So in terms of ethics complaints, I agree with you that, there's an entire body that's in role is to investigate potential ethics complaints, and that's the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. It may make sense, after they have done their work and depending on the outcome of that investigation, for the council to meet in an executive session to see if they have any additional action that they would like to take. The one thing to be cognizant of is as individual elected officials, there's a limited number of actions that the council can take against you for violations of the council rules. So what typically is the outcome of this is a public reprimand or a censure for the behavior, or potentially removal from city council appointments. But it is not a reason to declare a vacancy. So a seat can't be declared vacant because of an ethics violation.
Counselor Schimmel.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this a general opportunity to indicate the things we want to unpack later from the council rules?
Yeah.
So the three things I had on my list, one was, again, the understanding or clarifying the city manager role relative to the city council. This one is related to my colleagues and I, the debating public concerns both on and off the dais. I say genuinely, I want to work collaboratively with everyone. We're absolutely going to disagree with each other, and I want to ensure that we find a balance in doing that respectfully, both on and off the dais. And then the third, I highlighted something related to coffee hour work sessions on the first Saturdays. I haven't seen that in practice, so I'd be curious.
There's a section in the council rules that counselors can have coffee hour, like
Well, you called it. I think it said the mayor would call it.
the mayor would call it. No, let's chat about that because, let's unpack that to see how we want to change that. Did anyone else have the opportunity to go through council rules, and was there anything glaring or something that you want like more information about, or you think we could just revise? I mean, or if anyone has questions for Ashley, I think either questions or council rule things. No, I don't see anything.
Okay, all right. So the second part of this training will be exclusively about public meetings. Very exciting topic with lots of changes to discuss with you. So we will bifurcate that one and do that in January.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn this work session and we will reconvene at 7 p.m.
I'm keeping my.
Right? I mean, does it really matter? I'm going to start this work session of the Forest Grove City Council. You're fine. I don't think I necessarily need you. You can still talk. I don't think we necessarily need you. I'm not trying to be rude. This work session is about council liaison assignments and this is for calendar year 2024, but typically we would keep these assignments for the election, like the 2 years until the next election, right? And then we would switch. I don't think we
switched midway through the year last time.
Well,
To our term, so we've only had these ones for 5 years.
I know we did that because why did we do that? We did that because I think we had done Board and commission, like there was
Yeah,
some
we had
reason,
done the board and commission redo, and so
but
that
typically we don't.
there was 3 or 4 vacancies that arose, and as a result of that, there was some reappointments.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, you know, my goal is really to have people, so what I'm like gonna just kind of go through and just ask some questions like council interests. The two most important things I think to me are like, what are your interests? What do you really want to do? I mean, this is work and you also chose to do it. So like, what do you feel confident in? What would you like to work on for the next 2 years? And be kind of the expert on council that brings back that information back and forth. And then also, you know, you all know your time better than I know your time. So those are the two things. Like, make sure if you say like, hey, I mean, I guess the one thing I'm going to ask, if you're like, hey, you know, Mayor, I really want X, Y, and Z commissions, like, it's just really important that we commit to attending. And so we have the communication back and forth. So interest and your ability to make it. So what do you guys think is the best approach? I could just go through the list and see if there's interest for different ones, and then we can discuss it. How about that? Okay, so the first one on so budget committee, we're all on because it's so entertaining. It's the best one, right, Paul? Yes, like riveting every year.
Paul's bias.
Okay, how about committee for, are there any individuals who would like to be on committee for community engagement? I think, oh,
I can fill that.
Counselor
I know there's a
Schimmel.
vacancy there.
Yeah, I'm going to put an X there, okay? Thank you. Okay, Community Forestry Commission, it's quarterly. Councilor Marshall, you were on it, but do you want to try a different quarterly one?
I can stay on it if nobody else wants to get on it.
What time does that meet? That meets the third Wednesday at 5:30. Is anyone else interested on that?
Those are quarterly meetings as well.
Okay, so I'm just going to keep you on that, Councilor Marshall. I don't see anyone else, and you're the only one that. Okay, Economic Development Commission monthly meeting. Okay, Mr. Schimmel. I'm not going to argue. Okay, I'm currently on Historic Landmarks Board quarterly. Does anyone really want that? No?
For me, it's like time. So after 3 is best for me.
After 3.
Yeah, that's why the pack worked really well for me.
Okay, so
Historic landmarks at
it's at,
Tuesday, 6:30.
yeah. I mean, I will leave that one blank for now, and I'll put MW by it, really. Okay, so Library Commission. Councilor Valenzuela, you want to stay on that?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that fine? No one else? If someone else like was interested in one, but I mean, like, please don't be hesitant to speak up, because I also think it's really important that we all get a chance to learn about each commission and kind of see the deal. Okay, and then Parks and Recreation Commission.
I'd like to stay on that one to see that one through.
Okay, is that okay with everyone else? Okay, great. Councilor Marshall, is that one? Okay, Planning Commission, I'm crossing that out. I don't have to worry about that. Public Arts Commission,
I'd like to stay on
you'd
that
like to
one.
stay on that? Okay. And then CDBG, Policy Advisory Board.
I would like to stay on that.
Okay.
But I need an alternate.
Yeah, that'll be Mr. Schimmel.
Okay.
That's fine. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. And you, Brian? I just you didn't quite raise your hand yet, but I was like, I'm just going with it. Okay, Forest Grove Rural Fire Protection District. That's a monthly meeting.
Councilor Martinez, do you want to stay on that one?
Were you guys talking about that? Was Councilor
Yeah,
Marshall going to take it?
I know a handful of guys on that are on that board, so if she didn't want to do it, I would take it.
Well, what's going on? What'd you guys work out over there?
If you want to keep it, you're more than welcome. I don't need to add any more to my plate.
You want to think about it? Let's leave it blank for right now.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
see,
fine.
like, I think the goal is that we try to like make sure everyone has two or three. And so if someone doesn't have one, so let's just, I'll circle the ones we're going to come back to.
It's not
I just
stressful.
don't want these guys to get pigeonholed into just what Grippy and Elena had,
Right.
this kind of thing, so it's going to switch it up. And,
I know,
you
that's
I mean?
what I was
I
thinking
just mainly
too.
wanted to stay with Park. That's
Yeah.
on that one.
Well, maybe can I give you Forest Grove Rural then, Councilor Marshall?
What's that?
Well, we'll just circle it for now. Okay. Joint Water Commission. That's quarterly. Who was on that How many spots do we need for that?
I was on that one, but that one's during the day and is more difficult for me. I'd rather have the regional water providers,
Okay, the
which
quarterly.
Tim
one.
had before.
Okay. So you would rather have regional water providers. So that's justice then. Okay, I'll move you there. Can anyone make that 12 o'clock?
What day?
It's
a long
Friday.
meeting,
It's the
too.
second Friday at noon.
I work a lot of Fridays, so I work
I
almost
teach
every
at that
Friday.
time. He directs the themes on
Yeah,
there. What
and
is
Rod
that?
Keaton. Because we need 3.
Oh, I see.
And I basically guilted them into staying on it. I'm not even going to lie. I called them up and was like, it's really hard for me to get 3 of us on there.
We table coming back.
I'm
back to that
tabling
one.
it. Yeah. I'm stuck, so I'm tabling it. Okay.
Just,
Thank
just
you. No,
Mayor, if I may, just to clarify on the Joint Water Commission, it doesn't require a council liaison appointment, but the council can certainly do a council liaison appointment. It can be anybody that the council appoints also.
well, do we know anyone that likes water?
Well, I love one.
I know.
just don't know
But the time.
noon on
Anyone that
when
likes
I'm
water.
working.
Okay, we'll just figure, let's just try
There's-
to think of people that we can guilt into it. Okay, and then Sister City Committee,
That's me.
you want to stay with that,
Sure,
Councilor Martinez?
Finally got some good connection there, so.
Good. Okay, Washington County Consolidated Community, that's WACA.
So I went to a meeting at the beginning of the year I attended, and finally another one recently. For some reason, my name got dropped. I don't care. I can do it. It's only quarterly.
Okay.
But, you know, they might mess it up again. So I hate to have them.
Well, just
With a
for
different-
discussion, that's one that I've been participating with the community development for years on the consolidated plan, and now that it's specifically housing, it interests me.
Oh, this is not the same one.
This is the wait, Jesse, can you,
Communications?
I thought this was the dispatch list.
Yeah, it
That's a
is.
WACA.
Yeah, it's the
Right.
dispatch.
My
Are we
confusion.
wrong, or?
Oh, you're correct. This is the dispatch.
Okay, which one is
Washington.
Brian talking about?
I don't know. Karen and I were in the same meeting together, so maybe I'm just confused.
Well, no, I'm
I
gonna-
just happened to go to that one because it was recommended. So
Okay. No, it's fine. Just keep me confused and everything will be great. So are you good staying on that one, Karen, or no?
yeah,
You want me to circle it? Okay, I'm just going to keep
That's
you on
fine.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Washington County Coordinating Committee. That's transportation. I'll keep that. And then I need an alternate for that. Can you be an alternate for that, Angel?
Yeah.
I mean, but you can do it via Zoom.
Yeah.
It's on Mondays, like 12 to 2. I usually attend 12 to 1:30 because that's all I do. But you're okay with that? Okay, I'm going to put,
Noon on
no, some Mondays are really busy. Okay, so where was I at? Coordinating Committee Transportation alternate is up there. Okay, and then Washington County Public Safety, that's Jesse, the Washington County Public Safety Coordinating Council, is that the one that's just one elected from Washington County?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so right now, I'm going to circle that, but Stephanie Jones is the mayor of Banks. She took over that spot. We discussed it at the mayor's meeting like last year, but she did not get reelected as mayor.
Right.
She's going to try to get appointed by her council, and so we won't really know until January.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens with that. Does
And
anyone really want to be on that if that comes back? I don't know what time that.
I think that's one of those appointments that's actually done by,
Done by the mayors.
oh, okay.
I think, well, we had discussed it at the mayor's.
At the mayor's,
monthly, the
right.
mayor's luncheon monthly meeting on a Friday afternoon.
If there's a city rep position open, correct?
Right. If
Right,
there's a
okay.
city, then we have to like kind of decide who's the city that's going to take it. Okay, so now we're at TV Highway Steering Committee. This is bus rapid transportation, public transportation, TV highway. No one's chomping at the bit for that.
That is one that I am very interested in. Unfortunately, Thursdays at 4 p.m. can be a challenge for me. So.
I'm going to take it right now. Okay, that I'm not taking historic landmarks board. Do my list.
I'll take historic landmark.
Well, just wait a minute. Don't worry about it. That's
I
a
don't
quarter.
want you to view.
And
That's a quarter.
I can be the alternate. The problem is going to be in the fall because I will have a class on Thursdays at 4.
Okay, well, then you can't be the alternate. No
So-
offense. I'm not trying to be.
No, but that's not until the fall.
Yeah, but I just
Until
think it's.
August.
I mean, I think it's going to go on for a year. Or two.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Is there anyone
okay.
that's available as an alternate? So if, an alternate is only if I can't attend. I don't really plan.
Which one?
This is TV Highway Steering
Highway
Committee. They
Steering.
meet at Washington County Public
that's
Service Building. You can also attend via Zoom, but it's basically the TriMet Metro like rapid bus transportation system.
Okay. Yeah, I can be the alternate. Or
Okay, so alternate. When does anyone know? Counselor Rippey was on that. Do I need to go to a meeting this Thursday for that?
No, I think this meeting has been, the meeting date for this month, I believe, has changed. So, and also for January, but then I think it goes back to its original schedule, but let me confirm that. So,
If you can get me that information, that'd be great. Okay, Council Creek Elected Steering Committee.
I'm on it, but when we have meetings, it's kind of up in the air. We haven't had consistent meetings for a while.
Do you want to be on it again, or does someone else want to be on it?
If nobody else wants to be on it, I'll be on it, but it's like they haven't done anything.
I'm
much
also
lately.
interested in that one too.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna give it to you, Angel. That's fine, because
which you,
oh, sorry, I'm gonna give it to Councilor Falconer. Sorry.
who was it?
It's gonna go to Falconer.
Okay.
Council Creek, because
you want like a.
Okay, I'm Region 1.
Yeah.
I might have to look at how many I have. Okay, I'm Region 1. Forest Grove Senior Community Center. So we're just gonna put a hold. We're gonna put a like placemaker on the Forest Grove Senior Community Center because we don't really know right now. Right?
Well, I think if you want to appoint a liaison, what's
let's
less
just
known
appoint one.
is what the liaison may do, but we know that there's going to be meetings with Centro about the senior center. We just don't know the form, so I still would encourage you to appoint a liaison if you
Okay, sounds good.
can.
So who would like the Forest Grove Senior Community Center?
I wouldn't mind doing that one.
Is that anyone else? Seeing none, I'm gonna give it to Councilor Martinez.
And then I'll let somebody know if they have a meeting on.
The day that you have to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that's the deal too. It's like,
Yeah.
With not knowing.
yeah, like ask for help if you need someone to cover, send an email with the points, whatever we need to do, kind of. Okay, so the Forest Grove Chamber of Commerce. Why does it say TBD?
I don't know. It's the third Monday at noon, and it's monthly,
Okay,
with the exception of December.
so Councilor Schimmel is raising his hand. Anyone else? And then he gets it. Councilor Schimmel. Okay, and then all the rest are mine. So let's kind of look at our numbers. Okay, so Guston has 2. Guston has a quarterly and a monthly. Then Marshall has a quarterly and a monthly. Then Martinez has, I'm not counting the budget, just for a record. Then Martinez has a monthly, a quarterly, and a quarterly or a monthly. We don't really know. Valenzuela has a monthly and a monthly. Wenzel has a monthly, a monthly, a monthly, a monthly, a monthly, a monthly, a monthly. So I kind of think I need to lose one of mine. That's seven meetings a month in addition to these meetings a month, in addition to 2 meetings with Jesse a month. It's a lot. Okay, then Falconer has Region 1, Council Creek, and as an alternate. And then Brian.
You don't want to drop the 2 with Jesse.
He's like, huh? And then Schimmel has a monthly, and a monthly. So you have 3 monthlies.
Or
4. What do you mean 4? I'm not
So
counting
there's-
budget.
no,
Did I miss
understand. There's CCE,
CCE
C,
and the chamber.
chamber.
So 3.
Okay, all right. What do you need?
What?
What do you need?
quarterly.
What do you got? Something you need? To
No,
fill
I
out?
don't have something in this. But you already have 3.
Well, what?
Okay, so wait, let's go through the ones we circled. We don't have anyone for historic landmarks board. Okay, Angel, what did you want? Oh, sorry, Councilor Faulkner. What did you want?
We circled historic landmarks.
Okay.
And didn't we circle joint?
Joint Water Commission, Forest Grove. We have Forest Grove Rural that needs to be assigned, and Historic Landmarks Board, and
Well, yeah, but there are two of those.
And JWC, I think.
JWC.
So, I mean, I could do theirs. It's in the evening, which is harder for you because of the wrestling and stuff, isn't it?
They can,
Can't get out of
So
Region 1.
Wednesdays.
UTV Highway,
We can do
Washington
that.
County Coordinating.
Yeah, usually I
You wanna
can
give me
make
historic?
it.
I'm going to give you the Historic Landmarks. Yeah. So HLB will go to Counselor Faulkner. Okay, and then can someone pick up Forest Grove Rural Fire Protection?
I'll keep it.
Okay, that puts you at,
So that's 2 monthlies and 2 quarterlies.
yeah,
But the 2 monthlies are in the evenings. Those are ones that I can that don't conflict with my schedule.
that puts you at, okay. I
So
mean, you know
and
your
I'm okay
schedule
doing
more
it.
than I do, but I also think it should be. The Joint Water Commission.
And that one you said we don't have to have. Is that right?
That's correct. You don't have to have an elected on that.
We have boards and commissions.
I would say that most cities do, sorry, but you don't have to.
I think we should probably at least have one elected on there.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna can someone take TV Highway Steering Committee from I'm gonna take myself off of it. I just don't think I can do it.
I'll
So that's,
pencil me in. I mean, are they meeting regularly already and we
Yeah.
need somebody?
yeah.
The meeting?
So it's
Looks like Thursday
one,
afternoon.
Carlos Gonzalez is the chair.
Oh, definitely.
Metro. Okay, are you sure? Because you're at the,
Yeah.
thank you for, but I'm just, don't think, I need to be able to see.
And that's the one that is, those are conducted, those are hybrid meetings.
Yeah, the TV Highway Steering Committee meeting, you can attend in person
And I
or
can-
on Zoom.
I can be an alternate, but I couldn't commit.
I have Counselor Gustafson as the alternate right now.
Great.
Do you want to be the chair one?
You want to be the primary one?
You want to be the primary? Or, okay.
Okay.
I'll let you.
So we just need someone for Joint Water Commission. Fridays at
Noon.
noon.
that quarterly or monthly?
Quarterly.
Okay.
I'll put you on it. Are you sure? Okay. Quarterly. Falconer. Okay, so then the other question, and I've already brought it up, but I guess we'll just bring it up as a resolution or maybe at council retreat, but I was just wondering about the Main Street, like when we had our presentation, right? It seems like there's a will or a want to make sure it's like a collaborative approach. And so in our system of collaboration with nonprofits, we typically have a liaison back and forth. And so maybe it's just something to add to the MOU or a discussion of how we're gonna, if this program's going in the city, this is what I'm hearing from the presentation and whatever is then how are we gonna make that connection? It should just be probably the same as these other ones, I think. I don't know. We can also discuss that at the retreat. If maybe we should wait and discuss that at retreat to see if there's consensus. I just had it on my list. Mariah, can you double check my work and see if I got all of the, I don't know if you guys were writing it down at the same time I was. I feel like we got all of them. I also have bad eyesight.
The only one I think that I don't have, which you may have picked, is the Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency. Did you decide?
Oh,
which one that?
WACA.
That was me. I'm going to keep that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Martinez. You want,
The Budget Committee has everyone. The Committee for Community Engagement will be Brian Schimmel. The CFC will be Counselor Marshall. The EDC will be Counselor Schimmel. HLB, Counselor Falconer. Library, Counselor Valenzuela. Parks, Marshall. Planning. Did we pick one for?
Nope. We don't have to.
PAC will be Gustafson. CDBG, Valenzuela. Schimmel as alternate. Rural Fire District. Who do we decide on that one? Martinez. JWC, Falconer. Regional Water Providers Consortium, Gustafson. Sister City, Martinez. Consolidated Communications Agency, Martinez. Coordinating Committee, I have the alternate as Falconer. Who is the main one?
Wait, which one are you
I
on?
think it was the mayor.
The Washington County Coordinating Committee.
That's me, and then Falconer is the alternate. Yeah, Washington County coordinate like the transportation one. Yeah.
No one for Public Safety. TV Highway is Schimmel with Gustafson as alternate. Council Creek is Falconer. Region 1. The Community Center, Martinez. Chamber of Commerce, Schimmel. And then the last four are the mayor.
Okay, so the only thing and I'm like not trying to be rude at all, but like I kind of feel like Councilor Gustafson, if you could take one of Councilor Martinez's quarterly meetings, that would make it a little bit more, because she has 4 and you have 1 monthly and 1 quarterly.
So what time are her quarterlies?
The WACA, remember?
So public
It's Thursday at 3 p.m.
WACA is the third Thursday at 3 p.m.
Oh, third Thursday, 3.
Mm-hmm. And it's quarterly.
Yeah, I can do 3 or later would work.
Would that one work?
Yeah.
The WACA.
I can make that one work.
Okay, well, wait, one thing at a time. So,
Everything at a time.
yeah. Did you said yes, you could take that one? The WACA, the quarterly WACA? So
That's fine.
Councilor Gustafson's going to take WACA. Okay, let me update if I can see anything. And then were you arranging something else, or I think where is WACA at?
I'm going to be her alternate for the
The rule?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good,
And I can
A
be
good
I
approach.
can be your alternate for the steering committee if you want, Falconer.
I got off of it because I was like, I felt like I might drown. And that doesn't feel good. I can't even find WACA anymore because I got it. Okay, so that's going to go to Councilor Gustafson. And then we're going to, okay, I think that looks just a little bit more.
And you're saying you
I can be the
the
alternate,
alternate for
the steering
council steering committee?
Oh, do we need an alternate for Council Creek?
They did require
Yeah, 'cause
one last time.
I
or
was the
requested one.
alternate for him.
Okay, so did you hear that? That's
So-
in, right?
So I have Councilor Marshall as an alternate for the Rural Fire Protection District. And then is it Councilor Martinez for Council Creek as an alternate?
Councilor Marshall is an alternate for council, is what I heard. Am I incorrect?
And I'm primary for Creek?
Yeah. Councilor
Okay.
Falconer.
Yes, and Councilor Falconer is primary, and, okay, Councilor Marshall will be alternate for Council Creek. Okay, got it.
Okay, so this is the deal. I think, we came to consensus on this. This would be my hope moving forward. If you look at your calendars, something changes, prior to the Wednesday before the next meeting, but you have a month, then please call me, maybe even tell Jesse in your one-on-one, and so we can try to figure it out. Really the goal is that everyone likes what they're doing, and right, and no one feels over committed. Okay, cool. So I'm going to adjourn this work session. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. I have a teacher voice, but people like a microphone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It is my extreme pleasure to announce that in accordance with Oregon Revised Statute 254 and the Washington County Elections Office, the official results were certified by the county on December 2nd, 2024 as follows. Okay, here's all the statistics. There were 11,771 ballots cast from a possible 16,773 registered voters in the city of Forest Grove. That is a voter turnout of 70.18%. There were 6 candidates who ran for city council: Angel Falconer, Walanda Goombridge, Donna Gustafson, Jordan Miller, Brian Schimmel, and Peter Truex. I would like to thank all of them for their time and dedication to participate in the public process. By doing so, each of you helped bring a better understanding of the issues so important to our community. The 3 candidates that received the highest number of votes were Donna Gustafson with 5,009 votes, Angel Falconer with 4,817 votes, and Brian Schimmel with 4,764 votes. Please keep in mind that with the passage of the new city charter, the swearing-in ceremony will be the first meeting in January 2027 instead of the meeting immediately following the certification of the election. So we had a change in our charter. We certified, basically the summary is, this is the last year we will swear candidates in prior to the new year. It is now my privilege to call upon Mariah Woods, City Recorder, to administer the oath of office to councilors-elect Gustafson, Falconer, and Schimmel. So I'm going to call Mariah up, and I will help assist her. Thank you.
So first up, we're going to have Donna Gustafson, who is reelected. Repeat after. I, Donna Gustafson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and of the state of Oregon, and the charter and ordinance of the city of Forest Grove, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties bestowed upon me as city councilor for the city councilor. You could just come and sign here, please. And this one and the second line there. If you have any remarks.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the community for re-electing me to City Council, and I will continue to be a counselor who represents all of Forest Grove and not just the residents who think and feel like I do. Thank you.
Up next, we'll have Angel Falconer, who will be joined by her daughter. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Angel Falconer, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and of the state of Oregon, and the charter and ordinances of the city of Forest Grove, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties bestowed upon me. It's a hard one. As city councilor for the city of Forest Grove. If you would like to give any remarks.
Thank you all for being here. I'm really feeling very fortunate and grateful to all of the residents of Forest Grove, and also just everyone who ran. Thank you all for representing our city so well, and I look forward to serving all of you. Thank you.
And finally, we have Brian Schimmel. I, Brian Schimmel, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and of the state of Oregon, and the charter and ordinances of the city of Forest Grove, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties bestowed upon me as city councilor of the city of Forest Grove. I'd like to give a comment.
Well, the only reason I stand here tonight is because my daughter, being eligible to run for office herself, delegated it to me. So I want to thank my daughter for allowing me this seat, and I'm keeping the seat warm for you. And I want to also thank my wife, Barb, for entrusting me to take time away from her to be here. So, and also for all those who came here tonight, just thank you for your support, and I look forward to serving with the city staff and the rest of the councilors. Thanks.
Okay, thank you all for joining us for this ceremony. We have very important work to do. So the council is going to start doing that work with our work session in 6 minutes. So grab some snacks. If you want to watch our work session, that would be great. See us in action serving the community. So thank you all again and have a good night. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council on December 9th at 7 p.m. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Councillor Gustafson?
Here.
Councillor Valenzuela?
Here.
Councillor Schimmel?
Here.
Councillor Falconer? Here. Councillor Martinez?
Here.
Councillor Marshall?
Here.
Mayor Wenzel?
Here. Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Atfalati. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde. Will the City Council and audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. I'm going to note that we have a proclamation included in the packet about our home rule charter election results, but I am not going to read it out loud tonight. Item B on our agenda. Time provided is, item B is public comment. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand option to be called on. No one has signed up for written comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to give public comment? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to give public comment? Seeing none, we will now move on to item C, the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Councilors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items. What is the wish of the council?
Move to approve.
I second.
Great. The consent agenda was moved by Councilor Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Martinez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Additions and deletions. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any proposed by counselors?
I'd like to discuss adding our council president selection.
That's done. The council rules say it's done at the first meeting in
Oh,
January.
perfect. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on to item E, presentations. The council will hold questions until the end of each presentation. A 2-minute reminder will be given to the presenter to conclude remarks. So we're going to start getting our annual department updates. This will help prepare us for our retreat in January and budget considerations. So our first department update is from Parks and Recreation, and we have our Parks and Rec Director, Miss Ann Lane. If you would like to come to the front, that would be amazing.
All right. Well, thank you for your time this evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide you with an update on the Parks and Recreation Department's top accomplishments from this past year, top priorities for the coming year, and a progress update regarding City Council objectives specific to the Parks and Recreation Department. Council Objective 1 was to complete the Parks and Recreation fee study and ensure a long-term funding structure for the Fun for All Fund. We began work on this project in October 2023 when we hired the project consultant 110%. Since that time, we've held joint work sessions, a community stakeholder workshop, a partner network workshop, and spent hours with the consultant to compile and analyze a mountain of data. Those meetings and workshops have resulted in the draft cost recovery model shown here. City Council provided consensus on the model in the October 2024, which prompted the next step of policy development. The draft of that policy has been under review with the Parks and Recreation Commission for the last 2 months. Staff is working diligently with the Commission on this review and will continue to do so until a recommendation is agreed upon by the Commission, which will then be presented to City Council for consideration and approval and adoption. A portion of the policy will contain the long-term funding structure for the Fun for All Fund. City Council Objective 2 was to complete the concept plan for an East Side Park. The half-acre East Side Park parcel was purchased in January 2022 and is located on 19th Avenue. The house, garage, and driveway on the site were demolished in January 2024 following police and fire training exercises on those structures. We've been working with Place on the project. Community engagement and outreach efforts have been completed as well as initial design. Next steps include finalizing the design, development of construction documents. We'll need to put the project out to bid, award the project, and then build the park. We continue to work with Washington County Housing to develop an agreement for an access point on the north side of the property to directly connect those living at Villager Apartments to the park. We're getting closer, and it really has been fun to see it take shape. Council Objective 3 is to update the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. As we near the 10-year mark since the last Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan was completed in 2016, we will be shifting efforts and focus to this project in the next 12 to 18 months. We will be looking to align this project with the outcomes of the 2040 plan and build on the momentum created by that effort as well. This project holds great significance in providing direction and support for the Parks and Recreation Department, and we are looking forward to that process, so please stay tuned. Council Objective 4 is to complete the concept plan for Kyle Park. Kyle Park property was donated by the Kyle family to the city on December 17th, 2007 for, quote, the sole purpose of providing land to the city for public recreational opportunities, end quote. Kyle Park is approximately 7.5 acres and located adjacent to B Street storage on B Street. The park was identified in the 2016 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan as an opportunity to develop the site as, quote, an open space greenway that provides a range of bicycling opportunities for people of all ages and abilities, end quote. The Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan also indicated that the site should be, quote, equipped with bike trails, a bike skills area, and a bike track. The Kyle Park design was coupled with the Forest Grove Loop Trail project when put out to bid. This was done intentionally to maximize efficiency and reduce duplication of efforts, as the two projects have heavy intersection with one another. We began this project in October 2023 with the hiring of Alta Planning and Design and their subcontractor Place. Since that time, the community engagement and outreach efforts have been completed, as well as concept design and preliminary schematic design, which you're seeing here. Along the way, we received one small Metro Nature and Neighborhoods grant for wetland restoration at Kyle Park that will also be incorporated in the final design and development. We are working closely with Clean Water Services to identify constraints and opportunities at Kyle Park and obtain an agreeable plan that meets both parties' objectives as well as the requirements of the Metro grant. It's a bit like threading a needle, honestly. We continue to work toward final design and construction document development on that project. Council Objective 4 is to develop the Forest Grove Loop Trail Master Plan. The Forest Grove Loop Trail is an approximate 13-mile loop trail that would encircle the city of Forest Grove. It is comprised of existing trails and proposed trails that are to be connected to complete the loop. Included in the plan is development of Kyle Park into a main trailhead parking location and bicycle recreation area. The project was awarded to Alta Planning and Design and kicked off in October 2023. Since then, we have worked with Alta and their subcontractor Place to complete the community engagement and outreach efforts. We've been collecting data, identified and mapping existing conditions, established and met with technical advisory committee and a stakeholder advisory committee, and determine alternate route options. Along the way, we received two small Metro Nature and Neighborhood grants to re-indigenize the Forest Grove Loop Trail and develop a pollinator pathway. Both will be identified in the master plan of the Loop Trail document. We are nearing the finish line and excited to see the final product. Our top priorities for Parks and Recreation in 2025 is to complete the City Council objectives. We will just keep going. Although we have made great progress on many of the objectives set forth in 2024, there is still plenty to do before we can say any of them are complete. Top accomplishments. We'll start with aquatics. We've been working closely with Councilman Hunsaker. They are a leader in aquatic facility risk management to assess current operations and improve safety protocols and staff trainings. Making such an investment in the aquatics operation has provided neutral perspective and guidance toward best practices, staff development, patron safety, and overall facility care and management. It can be challenging for staff to go through an assessment of this nature, and I would like to take this opportunity to commend both Jerry Mead, our aquatic supervisor, and Andrew Losley, our facilities maintenance supervisor, on their commitment to ensuring that staff and patron safety is our top priority at the Aquatic Center. As part of the assessment with Councilman Hunsaker, it was determined that increasing the number of lifeguard instructors would be greatly beneficial to addressing staff training challenges and aid in instructing courses for potential new lifeguards working toward certification. 2 of our current lead guards were sent to the lifeguard instructor certification course and we're successful in completing that course. This triples our on-staff lifeguard instructor count from 1 to 3. Top accomplishments again for aquatics. We are always looking for creative ways to serve our community. This year we added a sensory swim to the Friday evening program lineup. The sensory swim program is designed to better serve the needs of patrons that may benefit from a more supportive environment, such as those with autism, anxiety, or sensory processing needs. The lights are dimmed over both pools, the noise levels are reduced. Adaptive equipment like pool noodles, flotation belts, and mats are made available for use as well. We hired Katie Waterstreet. She is a well-known and respected local professional in the special education field to lead this very special program. The sensory swim has been very well received, and patrons appreciate the added opportunity and support. There it is. The condition of the tile around the main pool deck and gutter have been declining for over 30 years. The need to address the deferred maintenance was highlighted again in the 2016 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. At that time, it was recommended that the entire gutter system be replaced. This approach was very costly, would require a closure of 6 to 7 months. Staff researched alternative solutions and found that while a new gutter system was preferred, replacement of the tile and repair to the gutter was acceptable. This approach also put the cost of the project more within reach and significantly shortened the closure period. We have been challenged to find a qualified contractor to do this project, largely due to the unknown nature of the condition of the gutter under the tile and the limited availability of appropriate tile, as the tile currently is in place is no longer in production. To complete the project, the Aquatic Center will need to be closed for 3 months, beginning March 3rd and ending June 2nd. We notified the community as soon as possible, a full 3 months in advance of the closure, and have been referring them to neighboring pools to schedule activities. Additionally, please know there will be a revenue impact. However, we tried to account for this in our planning of the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Since the required closure of the facility is extensive, we will not be holding the regularly scheduled 2-week closure in late August, early September. All maintenance and staff trainings that would occur during that time period will be done in concert with the closure caused by the tile project. Many groups and individuals will be impacted by the closure. We were very cognizant of this in determining the most appropriate and least impactful 3-month window for this project. Honestly, no time is a good time for this lengthy of a closure, but it must get done and should not be deferred any longer. Once the contract was finalized with the contractor and closure dates were confirmed, we activated an extensive communication plan that will be in place for the duration of the project. We've worked with human resources to assist impacted staff with direction and support to access unemployment benefits. We anticipate many of the staff will return to work once the project is complete, but understand we may lose a few. And in that case, we will resume recruitment practices until we are fully staffed again. So moving on to the Parks Division, we saw a peak in volunteer interest this year from groups and individuals, particularly youth. This increase is partially due to the further development of the Recreation Division and corresponding relationship development with the school district. We enjoy working with volunteers and appreciate their interest and support in making parks and recreation spaces, places, amenities, and services special for all of Forest Grove. We also had the honor of working with Eagle Scout candidate Elijah Jones this year on his project. Elijah completed a split rail fence repair and replacement along the trail in Forest Glen Park. He not only worked with Tom Martin, Parks Maintenance Supervisor, on the fence, but also James Steele with Clean Water Services on interpretive signage for the plant life along the trail and creek. The project was a success and looks great. Again, this year, we want to mention the ongoing support we've received from Light and Power. They continue to help us with tree projects that we are not able to complete on our own or would otherwise cost the department significant money. The crew enjoys the camaraderie that is developed in these joint experiences as well. So thank you, Light and Power. Next up is our Recreation Division. This year was all about growth and collaboration. This summer, we partnered with the school district to enhance their summer school offerings by providing enriching activities for over 600 students weekly from pre-K through 8th grade. In addition to the fun memories of water balloon fights, and slip and slides, we were able to provide each student with fun goodies to take home. This program didn't just serve kids, it also allowed us to double our recreation summer staff, offering valuable work opportunities while delivering incredible programs. A truly rewarding collaboration. We put together some awesome camps for kids this summer. Camp Grove saw a fantastic 230 participants this summer and leveled up from 6 weeks to an 8-week program, with added excitement thanks to our partnership with Washington County Parks, which provided weekly kayak access for campers. Quail Outside, our newest partner, taught unforgettable outdoor survival skills through a multifaceted collaboration. With support from Washington County Parks, campers explored Hag Lake, while Ride Connection provided free transportation all week long, making the program both adventurous and accessible. Skyhawks Sports Camps expanded in both scope and impact, introducing more weeks and longer hours to 134 participants. They made great use of our aquatic center, showcasing the value of our city's resources while giving kids a refreshing and exciting way to stay active. Both Camp Grove and Skyhawks participated in the free summer meal program, ensuring kids had access to free, nutritious meals throughout the summer. Kids Night Out has been a popular monthly event for parents to take the night off while we keep their kids fed and entertained on Friday nights. This summer, we moved it to the Aquatic Center for an extra element of fun by joining Public Swim. Kids Night Out continues to grow, and we intend to keep it fresh as much as possible. In our operations division, the Fun for All Fund has really been taking off. This year, we've received over 65 applications and awarded over $13,000 in funds. We continue to share the program information with the public and work with school district guidance counselors to identify participants in need of financial support, which has helped us connect directly to participants that might not have otherwise approached Parks and Recreation on their own, but would benefit from our programs. To qualify to receive support, we are requiring that participants provide proof of financial barrier in the form of a government-issued document from either TANF, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. There is a page on the Parks and Recreation website, along with an application form in English and Spanish. Melissa Williams, our Administrative Specialist 2, is the designated point person in the department to manage the program. We are very excited to have added a quarterly activity guide to our lineup of marketing efforts. This guide is in digital format and housed on the city website. Stephanie Fleischer, Communications and Programs Manager, has been a huge part of bringing this to fruition for the Parks and Recreation Department, and we are most grateful for her creative guidance and expertise. Last up, park development. We embarked on our first universally accessible playground replacement project this year. We set out to tackle upgrades and improvements at Hazel Sills Park in November 2023. We engaged the community with an interactive social media opportunity to help us select the main play structure element using a real-time vote feature. We got great feedback and input. the Crab Trap was the hands-down winner of the poll. We have run into some concerns with how the structure was assembled and installed, but are working to make those corrections. Currently, the play structures remain closed. Although we are saddened by this, keeping it closed is the right decision. The safety of patrons is of the utmost importance, and we are taking precautions to ensure that. Next up for improvement is Knox Ridge Park. Knox Ridge Park will also receive a universally accessible playground replacement and site improvements. We have just closed the request for proposals phase and received submissions from 4 qualifying firms. I look forward to providing you with updates as this project moves along. So it's been a great year, a very fast year, and we've got a lot of amazing things waiting for us out on the horizon. At this time, I'd like to invite your comments, questions, and thank you for your time this evening.
Councilor Gustafson.
I don't know if I missed it, but the pool closing, are the swim teams impacted by that? And if so, do they have another place that we've found for them to practice?
So we support and house swimming programs for Pacific University. We host the high school swim team, the high school water polo team, and Forest Grove Swim Club. We intentionally selected that 3-month window for the least amount of impact. All of the teams have completed their competitions by that time. The only one that is impacted is the Forest Grove Swim Club. And we have made contact with Chehalem Park and Rec District, Hillsborough, and worked with that coach to help get them connected to a facility where they can run their program still. But that is the start of their long course season, and we know that it is an impact, but it is the least impactful time.
Okay, and just another thing, you always impress me. The thoroughness of your report and everything that your department gets done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Brian. Oh, sorry, Counselor.
Thank you. Ms. Lane, I want to disclose to you and to my colleagues that at a candidate forum, I expressed some caution about the cost recovery plan. And while I don't intend on derailing anything, I hope that I will come up to speed on some important questions, either here or in our one-on-one. Those questions pertaining to the financial imperative, given that previously there was either subsidized or cost mitigations that were in place with your predecessor. So I'm just curious about the financial imperative, and the questions all relate to underserved populations, families, and the potential risk of kids not being able to play. So I don't know if we have time for delving into questions, or I can talk to Ann in our one-on-one and then circle back if there's anything answered.
I think it's fine if a little bit of both, if Ann just gives like a general update of where we are in that process. And then, I think are you comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I would say we're kind of midway through the process. We've gotten a lot of work done. We've got a lot of work ahead of us on this. I feel pretty blessed to not be rushed, honestly, and that's nice. We can take our time. We can sort through all of it, but we do need to continue to make forward progress towards a plan that is equitable, that we can implement in a consistent fashion through the department, and that creates some stability financially for the department. But fortunately, we've got the grace to take a little bit of time with it and make sure we do it right.
I'm like double checking now because I've missed Counselor Schimmel. So I have a couple, I just agree with Counselor Gustafson. I think Parks and Recreation, there's just so many things you're working on, and you're just multitasking and handling them all really well. So I just want to say thank you. We've opened a new park last year, the first time in 30 years. You're we bought property for an East Side Park that was underserved. We started a recreation program, cost recovery. I mean, there's just so many things. So I definitely think that your whole staff deserves a lot of accolades. I guess my two things I just want to bring up, mainly because our finance director, assistant city manager is sitting in the back, and I want to like prime the pump for budget, is just also a system that identifies the staffing level for the amount of parks we have. I've been bringing this up every year, I think, for a while. Like it's really hard on our park staff, on our maintenance staff to, we're growing, we're doing all these things, and we haven't increased our labor, our staff for that. So, and then the other thing I want to bring up kind of looks at our DEI and our other things. So like Bard Park. I know in the master plan, Bard Park's considered a neighborhood park. And so historically, there's no toilets at a neighborhood park. But then I think one of your first years, maybe your first or second year, you got that grant for the fitness court at Bard Park. And I guess I would argue that makes it a destination park, that people go there to work out. And then I would also argue that as someone who tries to work out often, I mean, I don't want to get into TMI, but you go to the bathroom before you work out. I mean, if I'm going to drive to a park to work out, I'm going to want to use the bathroom and then do jumping jacks or like do lunges or whatever, jump squats, whatever it is I'm doing. So I would also like to advocate that there's we figure out that bathroom issue, especially because on the east side, there is no destination park that has toilets. So I think it's an equity issue. I just think it's like a usage issue. But I'm also just wondering, in terms of our master plan, like how we I guess I want to just kind of unpack that more, like how we identify a destination park versus a neighborhood park. And then how do we make sure that we have the elements we want at each of our parks? Anyways, that's just kind of my rant. But I really am really excited for everything you do. I hope that doesn't come across as being negative. I just know that I just was wondering about that bathroom thing. And let's see, do I have any other? I think I'm good. Okay, cool. No one else. Okay. Thank you, Anne. So I don't know if I'm like, is Chief Ryan? Oh, no. Assistant City Manager and Finance Director is next with Administration and Federal Project Annual Update. I guess I should have just waited to ask Paul about the money. Right? Well played, well played. Hello, Mr. Downey.
Hello.
Make yourself comfortable.
That's better.
Yeah.
Feet aren't too far on the ground. Good evening, Council Mayor. I'm going to go through this. There's actually quite a bit to cover because this department does quite a lot, and it's also kind of covering the whole administration area. So it's going to pick up some of the stuff from the city manager's office. So times Jesse may want to make a few comments here and there as well. So next slide. And you'll see this fairly common for all the departments, helping you prepare you for the retreat on January 18th and inform you on progress regarding last year's objective, current year's objectives, accomplishments this past year, and top priorities for the coming year. And this report, well, like I said, will be the central administration functions, including administrative services and the city's manager's office. And when you're listening to most of these other presentations tonight from all the departments and also at the next meeting, just most every one of their priorities eventually gets to either Jesse or myself to get involved with. So when you're seeing everything else they're doing, it typically hits our desks as well. So, complete the city charter review process. That was completed, passed by the voters. Revised city charter effective January 1st will be posted on the website. Explore biennial budget and council retreat process. That's in process status. That's in progress process. The city will be looking at adopting its first biennial budget for the 2 years beginning July 1 of 2025. Develop the 2040 Vision Action Plan. And significant community engagement with current engagement efforts focused on Latino outreach. We're then going to move into focus groups and start developing the plan. Council will have a work session on draft vision at the retreat, and then again in the spring. Evaluate funding options to clarify and implement the urban renewal plan. We presented funding options to the URA board, who's also the city council for the 2 new councilors, who authorized staff to borrow funds to purchase properties. Staff has worked with its bond financial advisor, and we're scheduled to close a $4.25 million loan for the URA next week. Lobby state, county, metro to develop a small city policy that ensures the equitable distribution of funds and resources. This is an ongoing objective that is intended to include the council participation, lobbying elected officials to ensure smaller cities such as Forest Grove get an equitable distribution of housing funds. So as the upcoming legislative sessions going is something that the city's going to want to pay attention to and try to figure out what lobbying efforts we may want to have the elected officials get involved with the state elected officials. Develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion toolkit / lens to evaluate policies and programs. Staff met with Pacific University on their DEI lens and is reviewing how to incorporate this into the 2040 vision plan. And we're also continually working at making sure publications are bilingual, and we're trying to make progress on those that are not. The other objective was develop a climate action plan. Status, haven't done anything with it yet. Staff would like to schedule a council work session to discuss overall objectives and process to be used. May require a budget appropriation for consultant assistance in developing a plan. We'd also like to discuss timing of this project based on projected staff workload on other large projects. So some of the, like the 2040 plan, that's be some of the same people that are going to be working on the climate action plan from a staff standpoint. So there's quite a bit of work to do. Next slide. Top accomplishments. Finishing spending of the ARPA funds by the deadline of December 31st, 2024. And we'll file the final report with the federal government by April 25th, 2025. We do have some remaining funds left to be spent. Probably will have that number within the next couple days. I'm following up with some consultants who haven't billed us for some stuff to make sure as to when they're going to bill us and how much they're going to be billing us for, so we know how much money we have. We know how much money we have left to spend this month, and we're going to go back through and look at some of the projects that were maybe proposed as part of the budget process but weren't funded due to funds. We go back and look at some of those projects to see if there's funding available for some of those to finish out the spending, because there won't be another council meeting before the deadline to spend funds. So we're going to look at, like I said, we're going to look at other projects that we had sort of waiting to go and see how we can get the money spent this month. Completed the updated boards and commissions recruitment process, which was adopted by the council. It seems to be working well, where the council liaison and the staff liaison interview potential members of boards and commissions and then make a recommendation to the mayor. This one shouldn't be as bold as it is, but issued RFP for Site B development, and the URA board selected Fresh Foods. We negotiated an exclusive negotiating agreement that expires sometime early next year, and staff's working with Fresh Foods and an outside consultant on a development package. We hired the outside consultant to work with the city and to work with Fresh Foods, try to put something, to see if we could put something together to get this project going. And we should be hearing back fairly quickly from the consultant, and so we can hopefully make some progress on this project this month as well. HR conducted citywide culture harassment training. We brought CIS in and did about a 2-hour class for all staff, and then an additional 1-hour class for management. With our federal consultants, we obtained 3 federal appropriations, $900,000 for a community solar project at Light and Power substations, and that should be working on getting the funding for that. $250,000 for a 3-year COPS grant, and $850,000 for a TV highway safety improvements. That's to be up towards Mountain View Lane and in that area and by U Street. The city's going to partner with HUD on the solar and with ODOT on the TV highway project. Since TV highway right there is an ODOT highway. is there. We will probably be working with them. We will probably give them the money. And once we come up with a project, we'll probably have them administer that grant, those grant dollars for us. That's typically what we do with ODOT projects when we've gotten federal money in the past. Worked with CD staff and a commercial real estate broker on property analysis for potential URA property acquisitions based on consensus from the URA board. We've made offers on two projects, two properties, the Woodfold gravel lot across the street and also the theater building. Staff is working with the broker to complete the purchase of those properties, currently negotiating the purchase sale agreements. Completed the process to implement Office 365 for all city desktops and laptops, finalized paid leave Oregon policy and procedures, completely revamped the city website and fully implemented the monthly e-newsletter and quarterly print newsletter. Ordered a 3-year community impact grant to Chamber of Commerce for a small business development center. The help of several departments facilitated what they were calling the Glow Up Project downtown. That's for the trees, the tree work, the lighting replacement, sidewalk repairs, removing the grates from the trees and putting in a different type of surface around the trees so we don't run into the issue with the grates getting pushed up and getting too small. And we issued an RFP for senior and community center services, which we're going to be asking the council to approve the operating agreement tonight. Priorities for the upcoming year: prepare the city's first biennial budget for a 2-year period beginning July 1st, 2025. This will take a lot of work for staff. We're having to work on changing our budget software, work on changing our personnel costing software, and we're going to be putting out the capital improvement plan instructions fairly quickly to the departments, reminding them when they're doing this, they have to take a look at, because we're budgeting the first 2 years of the 5-year plan, not just the next year. And hopefully complete and begin implementing the Forest Grove 2040 Vision and Action Plan. Develop a general obligation bond ballot material for council approval to place the GO bond on the May 2025 ballot. And this is for the new police facility. And we had a earlier work session with the council, and the council consensus was to go ahead and put about a $30 million bond out for a new police facility on the May 2025 ballot. If those bonds are approved, we plan on hiring a city project manager and a construction manager, general contractor to review, design, and build the project. The city project manager won't be an employee. It'll probably be a firm that we'll hire to help us manage the project. We did the development services annex in the city hall remodel and addition project, staff doing that, and that was a lot of work trying to add on to our normal workload, and the police facility being such a large project, we're not even going to attempt to do that with current staff. So, develop educational material and conduct community education on the new police facility and the upcoming GO bond. I know the police chief and Stephanie have been working on developing a calendar and also starting to work on the educational material. And prepare financial projection for the remainder of the levy to determine if the city can hire the 3 firefighters projected in the levy. We previously mentioned this to the council. We'd hope to have this projection done by the end of this year. However, we need to wait till the firefighters bargaining is over so we know the cost effects of that agreement, and we're not going to know the effect of the firefighters agreement probably for a while yet. And also, there's other stuff like when we're looking at it is if council makes a decision on, say, the parks fee study, and it's going to require more subsidies from the general fund, how does that work into the financial projection? So there's a number of things coming up that we have to look at when we're doing the financial projection. Negotiate police association contract, which expires June 30th, 2025. I believe they're going to start that bargaining next month. Recruitment of a new police chief. Police chief has agreed he's going to stay through the GO bond effort, is what Henry has agreed to do. And then update the utility billing software system to a new version. It's the same software company, just did their newest version. Finalize water rates and system development charges for the water fund. Complete that study. Complete the proposed URA property purchases. Okay. And you are working with Light and Power on implementing the two-way meter reading system. We're looking at putting in a two-way meter reading system eventually, and over the long term, we'll have it so we'll be able to disconnect and reconnect people's electric service remotely. We won't have to send out somebody. So for example, we're doing meter disconnects for lack of payment. We'll be able to disconnect them from the utility billing office without having to send Light and Power staff out to disconnect the meters and then reconnect them when we reconnect them. Continue working with community development and engineering on refining the West Side financial plan. We've been working on this for a while. We actually got a state grant for part of the work. In the West Side area, that's the David Hill area, the flat area by David Hill, but mostly it's the area going up David Hill, the hilly area where we start getting into the urban growth boundary and the urban reserve. We've all got concerns about how are we going to develop that from a cost standpoint, because you're going to have to build all new infrastructure up there, and how's that, is development going to be able to pay for it all? Is the city going to be expected to contribute, and if so, what's it going to cost? And staff's a little leery that it's going to take too much resources to develop that. So then the question becomes, what if that urban reserve is not something we can ultimately use? What do we do for continued growth in the future? So that's basically that. What we're looking at doing there. Complete conversion of city desktops and laptops to Windows 11. We're getting there slowly. And complete conversion of Light and Power GIS data to a new version of the GIS software that's come out, and begin process to convert the Public Works GIS data to the same new version of the GIS software. It's a fairly complicated effort. Light and Power is partway through it right now. Then working with Washington County Solid Waste, communicate new recycling requirements under the Recycling Modernization Act. Public going to be changing what can go into some of that mixed container. And then working with CFM, who's our federal government consultants, continue to work with our congressional representatives and federal staff, try to obtain federal funding for projects such as the Festival Street, Loop Trail, TV Highway, and the finished water reservoir. Probably this spring, we're going to be applying for around a $27 million federal grant for some of the new finished water storage tanks that are going to be going up at the water treatment plant. And with that, questions?
Questions for Paul? Councillor Gustafson?
So the climate action plan, has anyone considered reigniting like our sustainability committee or a committee that can work specifically on that plan? Only because if we're hiring another consultant, that's of course more money going out. And I know that there's a number of us that have some knowledge on climate action, as well as Councillor Falconer, who has done this before.
Yep. We've had some discussions, and rather than reigniting the Sustainability Commission, which, I mean, part of the issue we have with the Sustainability Commission is every member on the Sustainability Commission had a different interest. They all were passionate about sustainability, but it was in a different area. And so trying to getting the Sustainability Commission together to get a lot accomplished was fairly counterproductive for us. If we're going to do something, I would have a technical committee or a working committee just specifically for the climate action plan, and probably not just a general sustainability commission where you just pull in community members to work on.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
A specific for
Yeah,
the climate action plan.
I do
yeah.
a specific something for that action plan. I wouldn't do a general sustainability commission if that's the primary purpose, because the other issue we ran at the Sustainability Commission is they never really got a lot of direction from council on what council wanted them to do.
Correct. My point is sustainability is just a
No,
word.
it's not the right
So
focus for
basically
something
a
like that.
group that,
Yeah.
I mean, this would be a directive
Yeah.
from council.
Yeah. I would do a technical committee or something, something where you have people that are interested in it and have skills and abilities in the area.
Councillor Schimmel?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very interested in coming up to speed on the URA process on the two properties you're going to acquire. Is it your intention to take the same process, the same approach as you did with the Jesse Quinn, finding a developer willing to convert the properties?
Yeah, ultimately, but there'll probably be two different approaches, I would think, because you're gonna have the Woodfall property, which is basically going to be a flat gravel lot because you'll tear down the warehouses. The intention with the theater building, which is the theater all the way down to Pack Tie where the alley is, that will be more of a redevelopment project of that building. So it won't be, this project here will probably be more kind of a mixed use project with commercial maybe on the ground floor and then apartments on the top. And the other building we want to talk, some of the councilors are still interested in maybe looking at a boutique hotel. So if we get an agreement on the purchase and sale agreement, one thing we're going to do as part of our due diligence is we got an architect who's going to do some work on it and say, will this building work for a boutique hotel? Or if not, then what kind of redevelopment project would we do on it? So,
Counselor Faulkner.
I have a question for you about the West Side Financial Plan refinement, and you mentioned maybe a couple bullet points earlier about SDCs. I'm wondering if there's some overlap there, and if so,
there is some relation because part of what we're doing with the SDC plan is we've asked the consultant to look at what the cost requirements are up in that area, and then we've had this discussion with the council before. Do we look at doing, if there's higher costs up in there to develop some of it, do we look at doing a zone SDC for just some of that portion of it? Or do we look at applying all those costs to all the SDCs in every area? So that's part of the work that we're looking at doing. It's just when you're putting all new infrastructure up there, it can get to be a daunting task because typically when we've done our development, as you see it, we go out. We tend not to skip. We just kind of build out. Like when we build out to the northwest, it all just naturally build out. So when the developer was building out, engineering would look at it and say, okay, for here, we don't want an 8-inch water line. We don't want the developer to put in an 8-inch water line. We need the developer to put a 10-inch water line in, and then we would pay for the upgrade from the 8 to 10 inches. But when you're up there putting in all new infrastructure, you've got to look at all of that at once. And so it's a different cost perspective.
And will either the budget committee or I guess city council?
We'll come back to the city council. Well, once the consultant and staff, once we agree on the project, because we got to list all the projects coming up, then you've got to say to ourselves, okay, is this SDC eligible or is this just rate eligible? Mm-hmm. And then we do that, and then we'll come back to the council saying these projects can be SDC eligible. Here's the amount of the dollars. Here's the estimated developable units that we have left. So this is what the SDC charge would be. But if we do a zone, we'd have to say, here's what these costs would be up in this zone. Here's what we estimate would be the zonal charge based on the units up there. Because an interesting mix up there, because some of it could be dense, but some of it's going to be 1 acre minimums. It just with the terrain in there, some of the lots will be 1 acre minimums up there.
Gotcha. Can I ask a follow-up question real quick? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm very new to this. So
no problem.
Maybe this is something the rest of the counselors know, but your SDC sort of, system.
Development charges.
The development charges system. Do you have it tiered? Like, is it the approach that it's any equivalent dwelling unit? Is it the same across the board? Do you have a tiered system? Is there an opportunity for us to
mostly
talk
for the
about that?
water? For some of them, it's same across the board. For parks, there's a different charge for apartments than there is for houses. But for SD, and we don't have a separate SDC for say an equivalent for an accessory dwelling unit. But some of those don't necessarily require another connection because some of them, if you can connect into the same sewer line or if you can use the existing water line, then are you really adding another unit?
Yeah.
So
But if it's a 1,000 square foot unit versus a 5,000 square foot unit, same charge.
Essentially, it's not. Yeah. Well, sewer is based on number of units. Water's based on the size of the meter.
Yep.
So if you put in a 3/4 inch meter for a 5,000 square foot house or a 1,000 square foot house, it's the same SDC.
Thank you.
Counselor Schimmel.
We good on time?
Yeah, you're fine.
Thank you. Just circling back to the previous presentation about Parks and Rec taking on more properties, more responsibilities, starting more programs, and the mayor's question about staffing. Do you have a financial modeling tool that you use when proposals come up so that directors know whether they're going to have the financial means or the ability to hire staff to support those new programs or properties?
When we did our levy, for the 5-year levy, we did the 5-year financial project, and then we asked the departments to do their needs assessments. And for example, if we were, the police, we did theirs, and the departments essentially gave us their 5-year needs assessment for what they thought their staffs were going to be, and we showed the council what those were, and we asked the council did they want to include those in the levy or not. For park staff, this has somewhat been a constant battle that we've had, is the consideration of do we keep accepting land, do we keep purchasing land, do we keep building parks? I mean, it's the balance of being able to maintain what we have versus keep adding parks. Can we keep affording to add park maintenance staff? Because it's the budgets. We don't have a lot of money in the budget for adding new staff. We tried to do that as part of the 5-year levy. Like we programmed in some new police officers, some new firefighters. We did put in a half-time parks maintenance worker because we pulled that position back from working with Light and Power, and we funded it with levy dollars. So we've done some of that, but we don't have a model saying if you build this 10-acre park, it's going to take 1 or 2 more staff, because it always also depends on what amenities you put in the park and what's contained in the park for how much maintenance work is going to be required.
I think my follow-up comment was I think that absent from the conversation leaves, I guess, an important piece of information for council to have before we decide to purchase or acquire property. That there's a financial means, foreseeable means to do that. That would be a request that there's some means for any director who has an opportunity, that there's that information available to them as well as to the council.
I mean, we have discussions with the department heads when we start in the budget process, and part of it is you want staff. You have to propose the staff, but we've also said if it's not in the 5-year levy, then the question is why wasn't in the 5-year levy proposal? I mean, sometimes the council can surprise you and say we're going to buy this park, and so it's going to take more work, and it wasn't in there. But also when you're developing the park, and you make it as maintenance. A low maintenance, where you're putting it, is it low maintenance, high maintenance when you're putting things in? For example, when you develop play structures, put new play structures in the parks are great, but you got to inspect, you have to do safety inspections on them on a regular basis. But you're doing that with the old equipment as well, so that's not a whole lot more work. But like I said, this has been the council's always sort of had this battle themselves. They really like additional parks and additional parkland, but they've had trouble adding the park staff to maintain it.
Any other questions? Thank you for your update.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Chief Ryman with the Police Department update. Oh, nope. You made her, you guilted her into staying. You should know better.
Mayor, councilors.
Thank you, Chief.
You go to first.
Colleen, you can leave. I mean, he's not your boss. He's just...
Just so as directors, we have great relationships. As the other presenters stated, our purpose here tonight is to give you an update on the accomplishments and goals of, in this case, the police department. We include our top priorities. Next slide, please. So at the Forest Grove Police Department, no call is literally too small. We handle all the calls that come through 911 dispatch center. So as a police department, we're allocated 1 chief, 2 captains, 6 patrol sergeants, and 1 detective sergeant, 2 detectives. Hopefully a 3rd one will be coming on soon. 1 school resource officer and 24 patrol officers. The department also employs 1 full-time code enforcement officer, 1 community outreach specialist, a support unit supervisor, an evidence specialist, and 2 record specialists. So calls for service, you can see we've taken a big drop in calls for service from 2023 to 2024. That's because of the great work of the men and women of our department. That's partial. One of the other, as we scrub the information, looking at the data, one of the other implications is we closed 2 camps, homeless camps during the year, and we started seeing a drop in calls for service on property crimes as those camps are being cleaned out. So that was one of the other elements of reducing the call load for our officers. And we had another variable which we're still trying to scrub is our dispatch center dispatches for the whole county. We did a computer-aided dispatch update to the system where we were out information for a week. Officers actually had to use the original Palm Pilot to track their calls and write down information and so forth. So we're trying to scrub that information and see how many calls we lost during that period of time. Next slide, please. And again, just give you an idea of our dispatch calls as well as our self-initiated. We truly try to emphasize a lot of proactive work with the officers on the road to make positive contacts and reduce potential. I'm a firm believer in a broken windows theory. If something small is going on, fix it now, take care of it before it becomes a bigger issue. Next slide, please. Again, kind of an average daily call we measure. And you can see again on a daily basis compared to the past years, we've kind of dropped calls. Slide. Again, our monthly calls, and you could see where we started seeing the trend in April, and that's about the time we were cleaning and closing and relocating our transient population into temporary housing during those first few months in the spring. Again, just a quick snapshot of the calls we take. I just let you preview that. Second. Again, you can see we concentrate a lot on traffic stops. Right. Yeah, I wanted to throw in hate crimes. I know that's been a topic I've had with several council members. Oregon Criminal Justice Commission just released the statistics regarding hate bias crimes in Oregon from 2023. As a side note, our state statute calls it a bias crime versus a hate crime. There was a 229% increase in overall reporting to the hotline from 2020 to 2023. The hotline is a state line that individuals can call if they don't feel comfortable in contacting their local police department or sheriff's office. And when the call comes in, that call is logged, and then it is sent to the agency. This way, they're going to track if the agency is responding to that call or not. And there was a 222% increase in reports of both bias and non-bias or non-criminal bias incidents. Maybe as a side point is you have to have a crime that takes place that includes bias for it to become a hate crime. So if there's no crime, it becomes a bias incident. It's still reported. We actually report to the federal government on an annual basis, as well as to the Department of Criminal TJC, criminal justice system in Oregon, and we do annual reports. And nationally, in 2023, there were 11,862 hate crimes and 13,829 related offenses as being motivated by bias. And those were reported by all law enforcement organizations to the FBI. As a side note, from 2023 to present, the Forest Grove Police Department handled 18 hate crimes that we investigated during the past year, and that includes the incident over at Pacific last month. Next slide. Immigration. There's also been questions about immigration. To sanctuary states and cities, possible repercussion might be the loss of federal funding. But Forest Grove will follow state law. Slide. The ORS 181-850 prevents law enforcement agencies in the state of Oregon to participate in immigration type of activities. solely based on an immigration status. If there's a crime, that becomes something else. So if somebody has a warrant and we're approached by ICE or one of the other federal organizations, we are obligated to assist, but it has to be criminal related, such as having a warrant. Okay, council objectives. The police department has been assigned only 2. We were very lucky over the last couple of years, and they're the same 2 is examine drug use trends locally and nationally and develop outreach and education. We did that presentation in May to council. And then goal 17 is research regulations for drone use within the city limits. That was done on October 9th in 23. So our top priorities is continue our relationship with Pacific University. And we have a very strong relationship with the university. They provide a lot of bias, a lot of, trying to think the other word, traumatic interviewing with traumatic incidents. So they're a very valuable partner. We also do some public education with the university. I'll get to that slide in a second. We want to increase our community policing training opportunities. And as I mentioned, traffic enforcement. So our top accomplishments is the traffic enforcement. We received 4 grants from our Department of Transportation. So officers are reimbursed by the state for overtime activities in DUI traffic, distracted driving, as well as speed and seat. So we spent a lot of time working those grants. Our trainings, as mentioned, we had a hate and bias crime investigator symposium. This was our second one. We do this in partnership with the DA's office and Pacific University. This is a statewide symposium, so we get folks from all over the state that come to Forest Grove, as well as Clark County and Washington to attend the symposium. And we cover all the topics that are related to investigating hate and bias crime. Next slide. So our top accomplishments in regards to community outreach. We did a lot of events to include our annual community barbecue. We've done numerous popsicles in the parks, numerous coffee with a cop. We had our National Night Out events. We attend the first Wednesday market at Farmers Market, as well as participating in Holiday in the Grove. Our community support activities include collecting Valentine cards for our senior population, diapers, backpacks, winter coats. And we also attend senior center events. Our crime prevention activities include scam workshops. We do those usually quarterly, or if we see a new scam coming up, we do the outreach to all our retirement communities and neighborhood watch. Our top accomplishments also include our first Community Academy. Last one we did was in 2019. This one was 6 weeks with 10 different topics. We had 20 participants. We had Councilor Martinez, he attended as well as Jesse, her husband. We had 20 participants. We had a lot of positive feedback. We already have a waiting list for our 2025, and that will start in February and go through April. Slide. Are there
Any questions for the chief? I'll start with Councilor Schimmel and then go to Councilor Gustafson.
I didn't want to leave the chief out of the questions, but one piece of gratitude I want to give you, Chief, is the commitment you gave to a nonprofit-led task force during the pandemic era. Your participation, wisdom through that difficult time was instrumental to just scaling the capacity of resources that and the former fire chief. Just a couple of questions regarding immigration. One would be, what information or notification you receive from ICE with regard to their activities, and also curious, I guess, in light of the state law, what you are asked by other jurisdictions, just in terms of your collaboration, whether it's with the county or other municipal police stations.
in Washington County, we have what's called the Law Enforcement Executive Committee, and we will be writing a statement to the fact from all the chiefs in Washington County and the sheriff that we are standing behind our state statute, and we will not enforce at-large immigration roundup kind of assistance calls. In the past of my career, usually ICE will show up the day before if they're looking for somebody, but we've not had any type of large-scale roundups probably since the mid-'80s, maybe even earlier. Again, I am an optimist. I'm sure there's a lot of rhetoric coming from the newly elected president to get some other things in place, but immigration has really been on topic for the last 4 presidents. It's really a labor-intensive issue for whatever administration is in place. Immigration also would, deportation of immigrants would also have a huge impact on the gross national product. I think statistically, we would be losing $1.7 billion. We would lose 12% of the agricultural employments as well as 30% of construction employment by moving down this path. So there are a lot of other factors, and again, I'm an optimist. I think there's a lot of rhetoric going on, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed on this whole immigration issue.
Counselor Gustafson.
I know we talked about this before, but with the increase in hate and bias crimes, and it is likely that will continue. And we had this conversation at council also, but there are some of the cities that are having discussions about how to prepare for that, not just at the law enforcement level, but at the community, city, and educational level. So I don't know if that's something the council needs to consider, or if there are programs or advisors that can talk to cities to help prepare them, whether that be education, whether that be city level consequences for hate crimes. Is there anything that you have heard that we can do as a council or as a city to kind of diminish and discourage this sort of behavior?
Well, I would think that, again, my humble opinion, that we would write something as a city to say, do not tolerate this type of behavior. I mean, nationally, I think we're looking at 1,400 and some odd known hate groups across the country. We know from the fact from our past instance, we have 1 or 2 hate groups in our immediate area, not so much in Forest Grove, locally, south of us. So yeah, the possibility is definitely, because there's definitely a lot of lone wolf type of factors that we're unknown to us. And we do work closely with the FBI as well as joint terror task on these issues.
Any other questions for the chief? Just one final thought. I think that in the last few years, your department's just done a really good job at rebuilding trust within the community and showing up not only when things are tough or difficult or there's a situation, but in times of joy and just being a presence. And it's really created healthy relationships and going with community policing. And so I just want to recognize your work and then the department's work as well.
Well,
And say thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Our other chief, Mr. Jim Gearing, is going to come give his fire and rescue annual update. And now our library director will leave guilt-free.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council,
Thank
good
you,
evening,
Chief.
and welcome to our newest council members. Tonight's discussion, we're going to provide some information designed to prepare the council for our upcoming retreat in January. And then we're going to inform the council on the progress regarding city council objectives. We'll talk about our top accomplishments this past year and our top priorities for the coming year. Council Objective 12 is to update and approve the Emergency Operations Plan and we're well underway with the EOP. We've hired a consultant through an RFP process. The consultant is on board and has, together with the fire department, completed the hazard specific index and the EOP update language. And the focus now is on completing the functional annexes, and then we'll get that back to the fire department for review and final approval. And council objective 13 is the meeting of the task force to make a decision regarding the fire district governance. The task force meetings have been on hold pending the outcome of the Cornelius organizational structure changes. The last meeting was held in May of 24, this year, last May. And at that meeting, the fire task force members discussed the need for an updated analysis to determine updated costs for the improved staffing under a consolidated governance model. And a meeting will be conducted in the new year once the fire chief recruitment effort is completed in the city of Cornelius. And then council objective 14 is to complete the alternatives analysis for a northern fire station and to select a preferred alternative. The council approved funding in February of 23 or fiscal year 23 for a study to determine the appropriate location for a future fire station. The fire department has met with our community development director to coordinate discussions on growth plans for Forest Grove, and the study will analyze fire department response data and project future call volume and location based on future demographics, residential development, and growth. Now, some of our top accomplishments for the year. This year, in partnership with the city of Cornelius, we staffed a peak activity unit. This unit provided an additional response unit to supplement staffing during the wildfire season. The unit also provided additional response depth and coverage within the city to meet the challenge of increased call volume. We held 2 fire recruit academies. One academy graduated in April and the other in November, just recently. These academies consist of training for recruit volunteers every weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for 3 months. And then currently we have a firefighter recruitment to replace 2 firefighters who resigned, and those firefighters are in background right now. Then as far as public outreach, this year we held attended a career fair at Neil Armstrong Middle School. We once again held our annual Forest Grove Fire and Rescue Open House, and that was attended by some of the council members. Thank you for joining us that day. And we invite our partners from the city, Parks and Recreation, our police department, Light and Power, to join us and provide information on what services we provide. And of course, we have an emphasis on our fire safety message and burn prevention. To this slide, we can also add 74 CPR classes that took place, with 446 students being certified in CPR. There's a few photos here of some of our partners here and enjoying the day at the firehouse. We've also made some fire facility improvements. This is the Gales Creek Fire Station, to which we put a new coat of exterior paint, window replacements, new signage, siding replacement, and lighting improvements. And then here on Ash Street at Fire Station 4, the exterior painting was, we repainted the station on the exterior, made some roof repairs, and we made an upgrade to our conference room audio visual equipment. And this next item, this was actually initiated by our council, who wanted to see the addition of an automatic external defibrillator at the senior center. And with the leadership of the city manager, he said, hey, we should take a look at all of our AEDs throughout the city. And so we actually added 40 new AEDs citywide, 13 in the police patrol vehicles, 10 to Light and Power vehicles, and then the senior center, city hall, aquatic center, water treatment plant, the library, public works, and here in the auditorium. We've also purchased new radios, ultra-high frequency and very high frequency radios to improve communications. And this is, I think this is noteworthy. I wanted to provide this information to the council. In the last 6 weeks or so, we've had a significant number of fatalities, 2 fire fatalities, and some really aggressive firefighting actions by our firefighters. I'm really proud of them. This next slide that we're going to show in a moment here is a video that was captured. It's about a minute and a half long, and it shows some aggressive firefighting and what training can do for us. Our crews are providing at least 2 hours of training every day, and it is showing in their actions. So we'd like the council to see this this slide here. It's a little bit painful for me to watch because it feels like it's taking a long time, but in actuality, the unit is arriving on scene, and within 30 seconds, they're gearing up right now. Within 30 seconds, you'll see a hose being stretched towards the fire. You see a fire in that back complex there. That's a strip of townhomes, about 4 units put together. Fire coming out of the bedroom window, and then heavy smoke coming out of the rear of the bedroom. Here's our firefighters stretching a line. That took about 30 seconds. And then within a minute, water is going to be applied from the outside before they go in and make an interior attack. And we'll see here at minute 10, the fire is stopped from advancing. You'll see the steam production here in just a moment. And there's the steam production. Forward progress is stopped, and now at this same time, the firefighters are going up the stairwell into the bedroom to fight that fire. And then we have our apparatus operator stretching a line to a water supply here, a fire hydrant. And this next slide is just a couple photos of a different fire that we had here in the city just a few weeks ago. This was our mutual aid response to the Cherry Grove fire, which burned 260 acres. Forest Grove had a significant presence there. All of our chief officers were there, with one of our chief officers as the incident commander at the command post. Did an excellent job at that fire. Okay, now to our top priorities. As Paul mentioned earlier, to utilize the levy funding to improve emergency response capability that will meet the challenges of increasing call volume. And it says increase response times, but rest assured, we do not want to increase our response times. We want to decrease the response times and improve response times. And then the next item is to complete fire task force discussions and present governance options to the city council at a work session. Update our EOP, which, as I mentioned, we're well underway. And then complete our fire station location alternatives analysis. And then we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Questions? Councilor Schimmel, he doesn't want to leave anyone out.
Always gets left out. Well, I want to express some gratitude to your department as well. And I know I'm going back to your predecessors and but during the pandemic, the fire department was put in charge of emergency response, and that included addressing food security, both in Forest Grove and Cornelius, and that department was instrumental in multiplying food security for the region in a way that still stands today. I mean, there are multiple agencies that multiply the volume of food and the capacity they have, and that wasn't thanks to some selfless acts by many of your senior folks who are pushing food around. And I had the privilege of being hired in a volunteer capacity to drive one of those refrigerated trucks. So that was just an honor to be spending so much time with that department and seeing them do that work. So thank you for that. In the emergency operations plan, I'm curious about local residential preparedness for emergency response, in lieu of the presumption that there's someone's going to come rescue us. And I know there's been past programs where a volunteer would go into residential communities and train them on how to care for yourself and your neighbors. Is that something that we might bring back?
I would like to. I think over the years our volunteer forces have been diminished. That's the truth. And the way we get to our communicate to our public is through social media, which I think we have a pretty robust social media program, and through our annual open house, and then getting out to our schools when we can. Part of the problem with being able to communicate that effectively is our call volume has increased. It continues to increase. We're at 13 calls per day on average, and that's our primary focus. But I think you're right. Getting the message out to the community is equally as important, and we'll do our best to maintain that.
Chief, thank you. That was a really good presentation, and the video was very impactful. Sorry, so it shook me a little bit, but I'm going to try to regain my focus. My question is, for a number of years, I think since the time I've been elected, so for the last 10 years at least, the Forest Grove Fire Chief has also been helping be the chief at Cornelius under an IGA. And so now with Cornelius recruiting for their own fire chief, how does that impact our organizational structure? Is it going to impact our organizational structure within our staffing levels? And what's your plan moving forward?
Thank you. I see our organizational structure set up in a model that we actually implemented about 3 years ago, and it's a business structure with 5 lines of business. And before that, the structure was such that a chief was assigned to each department. You recall we were responsible for providing service to Gaston, and as well in Cornelius. But we overlaid a business model with operations, support services, life safety services, training, and administration. So this model now is in my opinion, a better model, a more effective business model. And I think when we lost Gaston and we're about to separate in a way from Cornelius, that business model still overlays on top of the fire department. And it's going to allow us to actually look at our programs, our lines of business, our programs, and our services. And I hope to focus more on some of those programs and services that we haven't been paying attention to within our own fire department. So the business model is there. I think it's a really good model. I don't want to see it change. I'd like to see the model be consistent the way it is now, and then to focus on some of the items that we're not able to take care of. One example would be data, compiling data and analyzing data so we can bring more information to the council and more information as far as what our staffing should look like and what our response times are. In 3 years since I've been here, we haven't been able to make time and focus on it. The good news is I think we'll be able to provide that focus. And we've also launched a new software program called First Watch that is going to allow us to do that. And I'm hopeful that pretty soon here, we're going to be able to, on a regular basis, provide that information to the city manager and to the council so that you can see what our response data looks like.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Have a nice night.
Good night.
Thank you to all the department directors who shared information and stayed late. I appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to item F on the agenda. which is public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. Item F1 is Resolution 2024-46, authorizing the city manager to execute an operational agreement between the City of Forest Grove and Centro Cultural de Washington County for the Forest Grove Senior and Community Center. And I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant City Manager and Finance Director, Paul Downey. Hello, Paul, again. Oh, excuse me, 1 minute. Yes, Councilor Schimmel.
I just want to declare a conflict of interest or and recuse myself from the.
Okay, thank you. No, are you going to move on? Okay. So Councilor Schimmel has recused himself from this process and is leaving. Is that all we have to say about that? Yes. That's good?
Yeah.
That's left. Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
Council directed us to look at negotiating an operating agreement with Central Cultural. We've been doing that and meeting with the Senior Center and with Central Cultural. It's been a busy couple of weeks since the last meeting, trying to work on getting that and getting a transition period started. We've reached agreement with Central Cultural on the operating agreement, and last agreement with the Senior Center was a lease. We're not calling this a lease. We're calling this a license to use the Senior Center, so it's not a lease any. And there are most of the terms are the same. We'll go over some of the areas where some of the terms of the new operating agreement are different. We granted exclusive use to Central of the center and requires Central to provide health, wellness, social, and personal growth programs. Central is responsible for staffing, operating, maintaining, and managing the center, and the city is responsible for city utility expenses and structural maintenance. The agreement requires the appointment of a city council liaison to attend Central meetings pertaining to the center, and also for Centro to present 2 times a year to the council on center operations during the first 2 years of the contract. And we didn't put down appoint a city council liaison to attend board meetings because Centro is quite a different organization than what the Forest Grove Senior Center Corporation was. I mean, their board meetings cover a lot of topics, and there might not be anything on their board meetings about the Senior Center here in Forest Grove that often. And so, but they may have like an advisory commission or something. They may have some sort of structure where they're going to have, and they'd bring in the city council liaison to those. It's a little different because the Forest Grove Senior Center Corporation was a very small board, and that was the only thing they did. Central is a much wider organization, so that's why we didn't say attend all the board meetings. And again, the agreement's for 2 years, commencing January 21-25, with an option to extend 1 year from January 1st, 2027 to December 31st, 2027, pending council approval. One question Centro did ask is what kind of metrics would they be reviewed on for or whether the city council was going to approve it or not. And we told them that's probably something that will have to be developed as we go, kind of based on some of their reporting that they do to the council during the first year, how things are going, what they're doing, and then kind of look to the council maybe in sometime early in 2026 to start developing the metrics, because you're going to need probably to approve the 1-year extension probably around July or August of 2026. And they would need notice, and we would also need notice well in advance if the agreement wasn't going to be extended for the additional year, so we had time to plan. The termination provisions have been clarified, and it also includes a voluntary termination without cause with a 180-day notice period. And so that way either party, Centro, could say we can no longer do this. For example, let's say they do this with a lot of grant funding. Let's say the federal government cuts back a lot of their funding and they can no longer do this, and they say we'd like to do it, but fiscally we can't continue it. So they would give us the 180-day notice, and that's why we put the voluntary termination clause in case something like that comes up. The other item is we also put a thing in the operating agreement for preferential use for the city's parks and recreation programs. What that means, if Centro, for example, in the main area or the back room, what we call the north annex, the back area of Centro, if Centro is not using it for anything and there's nobody else, using it, the city then has first opportunity to use that for a park and recreation program at no cost to the city. Since providing the building and paying for the utilities, as long as it doesn't conflict with anything Centro is trying to do. And the city has first use of that area. And the other than Centro, and we've had, like I said, we've had some productive meetings with Centro and the senior board, and Centro and the senior board met last week themselves without the city, and they also had a very productive meeting. So the transition process is starting to go. And I know talking to Jonathan from Centro tonight, he said there's a few things that they're going, based on the meeting last week, they're going to want the city to look at, but we already knew some of it. For example, the domain, the senior center is going to look at changing their name from the Forest Grove Senior Community Center, Inc. to probably some sort of type Friends type organization. And so we're looking at, one of the questions was the domain name and the website, and the city's going to probably look at taking the domain name, the FGSCC.org, and then we will allow Centro to use that as part of what they're doing. That way, you say if Centro ever stops doing it, but we want to keep using that domain name, the city has the control of the domain name in the future. And so I don't think I'm forgetting anything, Jesse. No. So that's pretty much the changes that were made to the agreement, and so we're presenting it to you and we're recommending adoption of the agreement, and we'll keep working with Centro and the senior center board for the rest of the month on some of the transition details.
Great. Thank you. Questions for staff? Councilor Gustafson.
I think it all sounds great. My only concern is and maybe I just didn't catch it, the board meetings, because we're used to having those monthly meetings with our liaison, and I think that's important for us to continue.
Yeah. Well, the Centro's board meetings are much different than the senior center board meetings, where that was the only topic was the senior center. The Centro board meetings may not have anything at their board meetings for several months, but what they're talking about is if they have a different type, let's say they have a committee or some advisory committee where they're making sure the city council liaison is invited to those. Now, if there's something at the board meeting that pertains to it, then maybe the city councilor said that, at this board meeting, we're going to discuss this, so that the council liaison wants to go to that board meeting, they can hear that discussion. So it's sort of almost more than just the board meeting, but because you're not going to probably need to attend the Central board meetings that often, because there's probably going to may not be anything discussed on the senior center at that point in time.
Any additional questions? I had one question. So do we have like a baseline? Can we get baseline data or metrics from the previous operators? If we're going to develop a plan for Centro to be evaluated on or to be measured against, it would be really nice to have like a starting.
We have a list of what activities, and Centro has a list of what activities go on.
And the number of
weekly and
people.
monthly basis. We have what's going on at the senior center, and that's probably the senior center right now is probably utilized about 40% of the time. And so they're hoping to get utilization numbers, that utilization number up.
I would hope it would be nothing more than what we expected of the previous. I mean, just as a baseline. Yeah. Okay.
No, but that's one thing Centro wanted is they were looking at the transition plan is what do you do now? And so so they can look at that because
are we going to be?
They're not looking. Centro is not what they've also told the senior center board is they're not looking going in and making wholesale changes. They want things to kind of go as they're going right now. Then over time, they'll look at the operations. They may adjust some things. They may not adjust other things, but they don't want to go in and just say, we're here. Here's the new program. They want to take their time and work on any changes they may want to make at the senior center.
Any other questions? Wait, what is the wish of the council?
So I move that we pass resolution 2024-46.
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna go. The resolution 2024-46 was moved by Councilor Martinez, and I believe it was seconded by Councilor Marshall. First, I don't know, it's Marshall or I'm going to go with Marshall for that one. Is there discussion from the council? Oh wait, can the city manager read it by title only, please?
Resolution 2024-46, authorizing the city manager to execute an operation agreement between the City of Forest Grove and Central Cultural de Washington County for the Forest Grove Senior and Community Center.
Thank you. Discussion. I will start with the discussion, I guess, and then maybe other people want to say something. First, I want to thank the Forest Grove Senior and Community Center Board for operating the senior center. I think, I've attended a lot of their fundraisers, their events, a lot of effort went into that. I don't want to speak for the whole council, but I know myself, I'm always grateful when a group of volunteers steps up to serve people outside of themselves, which I think every board member did. So I just wanted to recognize that. And then, I'm going to be really honest. When I received the email with the termination date of November 15th, I think I came into City Hall that day. I was like, oh my goodness, it was August. I remember it was summer and I was nervous. And I knew, as our finance director and assistant city manager said earlier, we are confined to our levy. Like, that's really a long-term budget process that's our biggest revenue is our levy. So when we were vetting our options, honestly, I was like, I don't know who's going to want to do this. Like, I don't know what nonprofit group's going to want to do this. And so I think to have a seasoned community engagement essential service provider such as Centro apply is a gift. I think it's a gift to our community. I think especially right now when there's a lot of other things and needs that our community has that Centro is the builder of relationships with, I think it's even more amazing. And so I think that there was good intentions from all of us. I just want to say that. I don't think there's not any bad character. I don't think the senior board's a bad character. Centro's not a bad character. And I don't think the city was a bad character in this at all. Like, change can be difficult, but I think if people act in the best interest of their community, things will work out. So I just want to say thank you to both groups. And thank you to the council for, working through difficult conversations to come, to a resolution on this. So those are my thoughts. Okay, I don't see any other discussion. No one else has their hand raised. Okay, so can we get a roll call vote, please, Mariah?
Counselor Gustafson?
Yes.
Counselor Valenzuela?
Yes.
Counselor Falconer?
Yes.
Counselor Martinez?
Yes.
Counselor Marshall?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes. Resolution 2024-46 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Downey. Thank you, Mariah. We're going to wait for Counselor Schimmel to return. Okay, item F2 is Resolution 2024-47, designating City of Forest Grove City Council meetings for calendar year 2025. And I'm going to turn, Mariah's been on a lot tonight. She did the swearing in. Now it's her turn for a staff report. So I'm going to turn it over to Mariah.
So per council rules and the city charter, the city council must adopt its schedule of regular meetings for each upcoming year. So we have a resolution that includes those dates and then also a calendar so you can kind of see it very clearly. For the most part, it's the second and fourth Monday with a few exceptions, March because of the NLC conference, and then for that brief break in July and August, and then obviously the second meeting in December. If you have any questions, let me know.
Questions for staff? Councilor Gustafson.
Did you say there was an LOC conference in March?
NLC.
NLC, okay. NLC. Thank you.
The conference is March 10th through the 12th.
Do you know where it is?
It's the March conference is always in DC. But and I think just as a reminder, counselors are budgeted to go every other year. So if you went in 2024, then your next turn is in 2026. So the three counselors can go a year and the mayor goes, if I'm correct. Okay. And I tried to like bring that up last year of like creating a system where everyone knew which years they would go and which years they didn't go. And it kind of like fell. Like it didn't ever get us a motion or a second. So I think last year, Councilor Martinez went, Councilor Gustafson went, Councilor Rippey went, and then myself, there's 4 of us. So this year it would be Councilor Valenzuela, Councilor Schimmel, Falconer, or like 3 of you because there's 4, and Marshall would be of the choice. Councilor Gustafson.
But we can choose to go and pay our own way.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Right.
Like for city budget, it's 3 counselors per year.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, one thing. Any more questions for Mariah? Okay, what is the wish of the council?
I move to approve Resolution 2024-47.
Second.
Okay, it was moved, or Resolution 2024-47 was moved by Councilor Gustafson and seconded by Councilor Valenzuela. Will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution 2024-47, designating City of Forest Grove City Council meetings for 2025.
Discussion. I want to highlight 2 things on here, which kind of has to do with the calendar, but also just as an like trying to be courteous, FYI. On January 18th is not a meeting, but it's our work session. It's our retreat work session. And it's like really, really, really important for us all to come and like, especially because we're going to go to that biennium budget. It's really, we have this visioning plan. Like this is going to be, and I'm like not trying to overinflate anything, but I feel like this is a really important retreat to get everything in sync and alignment to move forward with our budget and our council goals. And then the second thing I wanted to bring up is that the meeting in March, and I brought this up last April, and so I'm just kind of reminding the city, ever since, I don't know how long it's been going on like this, but prior to me becoming mayor, the Chamber of Commerce hosted the State of the City. And this year, and I've talked to the chamber, the city is hosting it. So the city is going to host the State of the City because it's a city State of the City. It's going to be a free event. It's going to be, I want the council to show up. I want it to be televised. I want it to be really accessible to the community and have as many people attend. So we're going to have it in lieu of our work session, like during the work session portion of the council meeting. It's going to start at 5:30. So it's going to be on that Monday night. So it should be very accessible, right? Like that's a regular scheduled meeting. So we should all be able to attend. Other State of the City, like some of the things that are going to be offered, and what I'm hearing from this council, which I like, is is that we're all a team. And so one of the ideas Stephanie and I had is that like depending on your comfort level, but we want to give an opportunity for you all to share what you're proud of or something you're excited for in the future. And so what we were thinking of is working with TVC TV to have you videotape just a couple minutes. And then, maybe like during the speech, like I'm giving the speech, then I say, Councilor Gustafson's going to highlight X, Y, and Z, and then I'll speak a little bit, Councilor Valenzuela, just a way to really make sure that all of our voices are heard as a unified council. So I just kind of want to put that up, and I've asked Jesse to put it as a work session to kind of decide who's going to, like what topics you all want to talk about or what we want to talk about as a group. So we'll have that as a work session in January so that we can work with your schedules in February to film. I mean, and you do not necessarily have to videotape it. If you want to speak in person, that's, a good option too. But I just want you guys to kind of think about that. Yes,
Is
Councilor.
this in March?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be out of town in March, so I'll be remote that day.
Can you videotape your segment before that though?
Sure.
Okay, because I think TVC TV would video in February, and then we would show it during the.
Well, I'll be here in February. If you're recording it in February,
Yeah, I
then I'll
don't
be
know.
here.
So
It's just March I won't be here.
Okay. Yeah, we'll work. That's why we're gonna have a work session as kind of, and I'm working with Stephanie to organize it. But I think, I think the goal is that for as many people to attend as possible and to really come together as a community to say like, hey, these are all the good things we're doing in Forest Grove. This is what you can look ahead to. And, just I mean, because right now the chamber State of the City happens during lunch, right? And I know for myself, it's really hard to make it to that. So I just want to like make an accessible event. Okay, so we'll have a work session on that in January. Those are my only two comments about the calendar that I think. Any other comments? No. Okay, all those in favor of resolution 2024-47, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, resolution 2024-47 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Next up is council communications. And we'll start with Councilor Gustafson.
Okay, so the PAC meeting, there was two questions. One was when people apply to be on the Public Arts Commission, can the Public Arts Commission know who applied? Instead of us telling them, well, this is the person that was selected, they wanted to know if they could know who all the applicants were. And I said, I don't know. Do we know? Is it a big secret? I don't
Well,
know.
it's public information who applied.
Okay, well, that answers that. And then the other thing was about fundraisers. I know this comes up a lot with the Public Arts Commission because they're so active and they so want to raise money. And I know there was conversations, Jesse and you and I had a conversation about, why they can't do fundraisers without coming to council first for permissions. But one of the things was, of course, the meetings that they have, having to have staff time and council time. So my first question would be, and then I'll think on this with Colleen, but if they want to have meetings with the technologies that we have now, is there a reason for staff to be present, or can it be recorded and AI take over with the meeting minutes? And that's the submission of the meeting minutes, as long as it's been approved by that commission. And that would decrease staff time that's needed.
I think a big part of staff time when they talked about that was also creating the agendas, because that's something that we do through our software. So staff time is still required for that. And then still going through like the approval. So there's still some staff time, even with the submission of minutes and stuff.
I guess the only thing I would add is I think this is one of the topics that at the next work session, part 2, that the city attorney is going to be at. She's going to really kind of unpack what all the public meeting requirements are. And so if you have some questions pertaining to the PAC or subcommittees or minutes requirements or those types of things, maybe unless they have to be answered ahead of that, might be wise to write those down and maybe ask Ashley when she comes in for the next presentation, because there's been some updates to all of that as part of the new legislation. And I think it'd be valuable to just make sure we kind of know what the protocols are prior to making more comments on it.
Right, okay. And then the last one is, and again, I emailed you, Jesse, on this, but it was just today. One of the goals for the city, of course, is downtown revitalization, and the City Club is working on that. One of the debilitating pieces is how to communicate to people. And we all know that we send emails out to people and they get notices in the mail. And even at the city level, it's hard to get people to get responses from them on surveys. And so the request was to be able, as the Main Street administrator, to be able to use city communication mediums in order to communicate with the community regarding the Main Street program, regarding the activities to happen downtown, especially because right now we're in our strategic development phase, which means we have to have outreach to the community very similarly like the 2040 plan, and get surveys done from our community, as well as focus groups that our Main Street coordinator will come here to interview these focus groups. But it will also be after focus groups are met with and after the strategy is developed, we will be having a town hall meeting as well. So again, that's everybody invited. and that communication is a problem. So what path should they follow to see if we can get approval specifically for the City Club as a nonprofit to be able to use city medium to communicate with the public? Because I know it's a no-go for nonprofits, right? Because then all the nonprofits will want to do it. Just something to chew on.
Well, and I think I was curious too, because I actually in a later work session had it written down. Like I was curious about the MOU between Main Street Program, the Chamber, and the city, because I was wondering, like looking at is that something that's ironed out in that MOU, as well as having a council liaison? There's like things that we have built into other groups to kind of like be like our process of liaison and moving information and kind of creating systems. So I'm wondering if that can be added to the list of things to talk about where are we at with the MOU with Main Street Program?
Well, in reference to the prior question, currently the city does not publish nonprofit announcements or publications or in our newsletter or a quarterly newsletter or on the social media. It's city. We talk about city events. And so if the council would like to look at that, that's really a broader conversation about whether we want to kind of publicize nonprofit events and what the implications of that might be, what the resources would be, what the policy would be associated with that, where it would be published, kind of all the logistics. So that's kind of the response to that question. In regard to the MOU, I know there's been some meetings between the City Club, the Chamber of Commerce, and I think to the city. The status of that, though, Mayor, I don't know what the status of it is. I can get back to the council, though, if you'd like.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thanks. Are you done with your report?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to switch to this end. Councilor Marshall.
We went over basically everything with Ann, and we haven't had a community forestry one in a while. So I don't have anything to report.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Valenzuela.
So I have nothing to report either, except meetings are coming up. So that's why I have nothing to report.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Martinez.
So, so the chief did give us a great report on the fire department, which included the rural fire district. And then also there's the Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency, which is WACA. Director Cleo Howell, who is part of the fire district. So he's going to retire in June, and he is attending the budget committee meetings as a representative for Forest Grove, and it has to be an elected official. He says he attends 1 to 2 meetings a year, and that someone will at some point need to. They want someone to attend because. So that the city knows what they'll be charged, apparently.
Wait a minute. Sorry. So there's a WACA budget advisory committee,
Correct.
and it's supposed to be an elected attending, and we have a volunteer attending who's going to retire.
He's
that-
elected. He is an elected official. So Cleo Howell is elected to the rural fire district.
So that's why he fit. Okay, so when is
He's been attending for 15 years or so, but quite a long
I'm not sure how
time.
long he's been on WACA. So
Yeah.
Okay.
He was asked to start attending by one of the counselors quite some time ago.
So what we could do is we could check with WACA to see what, since he is retiring, what their bylaws say about kind of if it's somebody that's required from the rural forest district, or if it's another elected representative. I'm not sure, but how about we check with WACA and kind of find out, and then I can have the chief look into that.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is a good time to bring it up. We've got time now to do something about it
Yeah.
if we need to. So.
Okay.
Are you good?
That's it. Sorry.
Okay, cool. No, you're fine. And then I know our two newly elected might not have anything, but you maybe you want to enter. I don't know. I'll go with Counselor Schimmel first.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it's an honor to be with all of you up here as colleagues, and I'm looking forward to 4 years of some spirited deliberations, and I would look forward to some one-on-one conversations just for introductions and background and understanding and how we like to operate. So I'll look forward to that at times of your convenience. And in terms of Councilor Communications, I trust that this will be the time where we're celebrating the increase in public participation in the decision-making process.
Great. Thank you. Counselor Falconer.
Yeah, I'm really excited to work with you all, and I look forward to our next agenda item and beyond. So it's a pleasure to be here. I've learned a lot already in a few hours. So very fun. Very grateful to work with a lot of engaged people. So thanks for your service.
Thank you. Okay, next up is our city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So you've heard from 4 departments tonight. You're going to hear from 4 additional departments at the next January meeting. So I'll try to give you a couple updates from those departments that didn't update tonight. In regards to the retreat, the mayor mentioned it. Very important meeting, January, is it 18th?
Yes.
Yeah, January 18th. Each of you will be getting contacted by Jamie to schedule one-on-one meetings with Sarah Wilson from SSW. So those are normally a half hour to an hour. It's just to kind of talk about what expectations you may have for the retreat, what you might want to accomplish, what some of your top issues are, and then what they will do from that is they'll try to put together an agenda regarding the retreat. So just know that's on its way. Talked with Colleen before the meeting tonight in the library. Both projects are going very well. Those projects are the west restrooms. Recall the east restrooms are done. The west restrooms are progressing nicely. The partition for the teen library area is in progress. We're very much encouraging the contractor to go quickly. That's an ARP project. Couple things from Public Works, and again, you'll hear more about these when the department directors do their updates. Public Works Administrative Building continues to go along. Very good progress there. We selected Howard Wright Builders from Portland. We're looking to start construction on that building in the spring. It's going to take approximately 9 months to complete. We also awarded a contract on the North Transmission Line Emergency Intertie project, and we issued a notice of proceed. That's a water project that will deliver some additional water source in the event of an emergency for the east side of town. And then last, but certainly not least, a big shout out to Keith Horman and Light and Power Director. You hear more about this project, but Light and Power was awarded a grant from the Oregon Department of Energy for wildfire mitigation. This is to basically take overhead lines in wooded areas and to bury the lines so that we're not subject to a fire hazard, but they were awarded $438,190. So congratulations to Light and Power. This is in addition to the grant that was mentioned earlier from Paul Downey, about $900,000 for the solar project. So they've been busy and they've been securing grants. So congratulations. We're looking at doing a press release later on this week, so I wanted you to hear about it first. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jesse. So I'll try to keep, we're just 2 minutes over agenda, so I'll try to keep it pretty short. On December 2nd, I attended R1 ACT, which is Region 1 Transportation. It's an ODOT Transportation Advisory Committee. And the takeaways, that I guess I want to just summarize from that meeting. Well, first of all, the governor's budget was released, and they're going to restore some things. And anyways, but I really don't want to spend the time talking about that quite right now because there'll be more time to talk about that. But they've really talked about their climate action goals, and they were awarded $10 million in 2024. And what they're really trying to do, so this $10 million for their climate action goals are about charging, reliability, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. They have these overarching goals, but the takeaway for me of kind of going through it is really what they're trying to do is obligate the money as fast as possible, because there's fear with the changing administration that climate action will be sidelined. And so it kind of stuck out to me too, because I think, Councilor Gustafson had comments earlier about being proactive in the community we're building, the community we want to see. And I think, really figuring out ways in which to do that is our best bet to make sure that we continue to operate under the goals and objectives that we have as a community have established. But they have like a lot of good projects coming. I mean, I've wrote a lot of notes, but you probably don't want to hear about all of it. And the governor's budget highlights include, they're just really trying to decrease the wait time in DMV, make more efficient freight industry way stations, like update those things, modernize facilities within ODOT, keep full staffing levels. And then a lot of talk is always about bike pedestrian safety and maintenance, safety roads. And then they still have, there was transportation projects from the 2017 budget that didn't get achieved. And so to try to make those whole. But that's your R1 update. Let me go back to my other note for my mayor's update. I talked to you guys about the state of the city planning, and so did Jesse. And then we talked about March 17th for the state of the city. I would also like to shout out the Light and Power Department, the Chamber, and other volunteers of the Holiday Light Display Team for the holiday tree lighting kickoff to the holiday season. That was really well attended and a great event to kick off the holidays. And I'd also like to shout out to all the volunteers, the Firefighters City Club, and city staff for their efforts with Holiday in the Grove. Monday from 10 until 1, I was at the library where we had Parks and Rec Department, police, the MYAC was there, the library was there. They had 2 different music groups. There were holiday card making, ornament making, candy cane reindeer, donuts from Papa Floyd's, coffee, just a good community event. The Artisan Fair was hosted by, or in partnership, I believe, with the City Club, and that happened here. And then the light parade, where it was great weather, and that was hosted by the City Club and the Western Washington County firefighters, and they did a great job. I helped MC that event. I'm hoping next year I can walk in the event and not have to MC it. So today I attended the Washington County Chair plus Mayor's meeting, and the 2 big topics were SHS reform, is kind of what we've labeled it, and then also Washington County's budget. So both are a little bit troubling for city mayor. So I think the SHS funding thing seems, I'm just going to give you my personal views on it. It's really, I feel difficult because I value effective partnerships and collaboration, and Metro's a really good partner to the city of Forest Grove, and Washington County is a partner to the city of Forest Grove. We rely on both of those partners to provide essential services to our community. And so when it feels like I'm getting, like cities are in the middle, getting pulled between the 2 of them, figuring out which approach is best to provide services to vulnerable communities, it's really not a good feeling. So the county is implying that there would be a huge deficit if the ballot measure passes, that they would decrease their funding by $20 million in the change in fiscal year 26, and that they would not have enough money to provide the services that they have planned for and built out. There's a sentiment that Metro is moving too fast to the ballot in May, that they're pushing for a tax cut, oversight and reduction services. And there's I think an ask from the county and from some city mayors for Metro to slow down the process and invite representatives from key entities to discuss steps forward. So I don't really know. That's where we're at with that. Basically, it looks like Metro is going to have a ballot measure in May to reform SHS funding. So, and then the second part of our meeting was about, they just got their proposed budget for the next fiscal year, and it looks like they have a $20 million gap in next year's budget. I think I wrote wow in all caps. My neighbors who can read that. So what does that mean? It means they're going to reduce services, cut programs, cut headcount, reduction in force, so maybe lay off people. Why is this? I mean, we should all know why this is really scary to us, right? MISTIP funding for roads, WCCLS for libraries, sheriffs for jails, election systems, like a lot of our things that we fund, Center for Addiction Triage and Treatment, like all of these things are county funded with, right, with the city. So we have our Fern Hill, I mean, we have some projects in the queue. Anyways, I'll just keep you posted on that. What the chair did ask, like, well, how should we move forward with this budget? And I did advocate for a meeting from Washington County commissioners or with Washington County commissioners about their proposed budget. So electeds in Washington County can ask questions. So you might see an email from Chair Harrington saying like, hey, we're going to go over our budget. Here's some scenarios, come ask questions. And I think that would be a really beneficial event because you'll hear from Washington County administration about their budget, like, and what their plans are. The other thing I just want to say is just a friendly reminder that this Thursday from 11 until 2 is the city staff holiday party. And I mean, I just love our staff for so many reasons, but they give for all of our community all the time. And then they do their holiday luncheon party is a fundraiser to donate more money to nonprofit groups. I mean, I just think it's the coolest thing. I just think like the whole idea of giving and service is just amazing. So that's just a drop-in luncheon. You can either donate an item to a raffle or you can buy raffle tickets, or you don't have to do either of those things. You can come and enjoy food and thank our city staff for all their hard work. Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Okay,